Am I calling to order or you?
Just call it to order.
Okay. I call the February 20th goal setting workshop to order. Do a roll call. Everyone. Oh,
Roll call.
you're doing it. Sorry.
Connor, mid.
Oh, I know. Here.
Council President Dogo. Here. Councilor Frieden.
Here.
Councilor
I am president.
Allen.
Here. Okay. All right, we're all here.
Great. Well, good morning. I'm going to do the overview of the agenda and the goal setting process, and so that the mayor can participate, I'll probably do some of the facilitation and kind of walk us through the agenda today and kind of do the process of getting staff involvement here as a resource and similar to last year, for those of you that were here, the three of you. I think it was a pretty successful process, the way that we did it, with having staff involved with giving project updates, looking at your existing goals, and seeing what the next steps are. We will have time on the agenda, I think first thing, to go through all the public comments. So there was a lot of online comments that we did with the survey. And then we had about 50 plus people at the open house. And so there's a lot of comments there, and we did try to summarize them for your packet, because there was so much to go through, but hopefully you had a chance to read them, because there was a lot of great ideas and commentary from citizens there. We have only until 1 p.m. So we do have to be effective with our time and efficient with our time. That being said, I think we could do it. Sort of reminder about the goal setting process is that the council adopts our goals, and then staff gets to work on the budget, and your goals are incorporated into our annual budget, which is presented in May. I think we're targeting mid-May for that budget committee meeting. And then the council adopts the budget in June, and then we start work on the goals in starting in July. So these are fiscal year goals, which can be a little confusing because, hey, it's a new year, January, February, and we're really not getting started on new things until the next fiscal year. That being said, as you probably are aware and been a part of this process and seen it work, there's a lot of goals and things that we are continuing to do. And so there is overlap between the fiscal years, obviously, and that some of your goals will probably be continuation goals or the next logical step in implementing a plan, a policy, or a capital project.
Can I ask a question on that, please? About what percentage of the time that you guys need for those continuing goals, what percentage of all of your time is already taken up by the goals that we already have set? You think, is it like a 50%, or is it more like 80%, or is it? I'm just kind of wondering.
I think it's hard to define, because it's probably the majority of goals, especially like essential infrastructure, that are ongoing. Housing, livability, and growth a lot of those are ongoing, right? It's sort of the next thing of like, what else can we do with housing affordability? What else is next in the UGB process, right? Sure. It's the new things that I think, if you've seen my iceberg diagram of all the stuff that the city does, most of it is under the water, and continue to do it. It's just part of the process of master planning and comprehensive plan, and what next policy are we doing, and that gets sort of embedded into our ongoing work. It's the new stuff, which is on top of the water, the tip of the iceberg, that the council hears from the public on. We need to do a public art program. We really need to, do more yellow flashing lights, and so those are the things that get added, to the workload, and that kind of is that probably 20 to 30%, adding to our capacity.
Fair enough. We just have to be careful when we put things on the part that's out of the water that we don't make balance of the
That's sure. Continuing the metaphor, that's a good way to put it. And part of, I guess, good governance, which is one of the council goals, is that we are a growing city, we're a growing organization, And as the council reviews their goals, we're here to kind of provide advice. Can we take that on? Do we have the capacity, or what will it take, right? Do we need another body? Do we need another FTE? Do we contract for that service? Do we have the budget for doing that? Are finances in line with how we're growing? And that's incumbent upon staff to make sure that, you know, we're giving you that information, studying this all because we're taking up too much, which we all love to do because there's so many things to do and it's exciting, but at the same time,
we do rely on you to make sure that we don't overburden, you. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
We're looking at you, when I ask that question, it's like, you're the city manager, so we hope that you don't let us overburden you.
Yeah, if my hair starts falling out, then you know.
Okay.
Okay, so then the bulk of the day will be basically reviewing with staff where we're at with the existing needs. What ideas have come up from city council, so having this dialogue, this discussion amongst you all about here's what I'm interested in, this is my priority, this is what I have heard from the public, and really trying to hone in and refine down to what your goals are. They don't have to be completely word for myth and perfect by the end of the day, not at all. In fact, typically we bring draft back to council and say, here are your goals and here's your strategic actions that we heard at the goal setting workshop. And you have another opportunity to really dive into those during a council meeting or another council workshop before adoption. So about goals, so I think I had mentioned a couple months ago as we got into this process that our practice here has been to have these categories, right? These are your priorities, development, sustainability, the essential infrastructure, housing, livability, growth, wildfire resiliency, good governance. Those are your top line big priorities that you have for leading your community. Underneath those, our practice has been to then, and this is where you guys really usually gravitate toward, right? Is the strategic action. So how do we implement, wildfire community resiliency? What are those strategic actions taken next fiscal year to continue to advance the ball down the field? Same with environmental sustainability, good governance, all those goals, right? We've made attempts over the years through public outreach and stuff of like trying to have goal statements associated with those categories, because that is more of your value statements about those goals, right? That's kind of telling the community, here's what we mean by good governance. This is what we mean by wildfire resiliency. And I think maybe this year you might want to have some conversation about that, or maybe pitch to staff for us to kind of develop stuff, develop a goal statement for each of those priorities. So that those strategic actions kind of fit nicely and meet those statements. And then for your strategic actions, keep in mind that, at the policy level, you're really giving us the direction on, we need to do more community outreach, right? The tactical level then is up to us with our work plan and putting into our budget what that actually means. Are we going to be doing social media buys? Are we going to be doing more, double our newsletters or something like that, right? Like that's where we kind of build into our work plan, come back, into the budget where you see it in there. But the council you get for this today, you don't have to get into the tactical level of exactly how we execute on strategic actions. Like if we're looking at doing a roundtable or forming a task force around affordable housing, that was pitched as an idea. Council doesn't need to say it needs to be twice a month, and we'll develop that and come back, and present that as part of okay, how to implement this goal is we propose these groups. We're gonna, have a council liaison to it. We'll meet monthly, etc. So just keep that in mind. Don't sweat too much if all the details are here in this goal. Well, we got the goal, but staff member and bring something.
So Jordan, so when I think about goals, I think about measurable goals.
Mm-hmm.
So we know if we're on track and so forth. So when you talk about these strategic items, we're also leaving it to you to say, here's when we can start, here's when we think we can complete. And timing, all that.
Yeah, and it's much direction, right? So, this is how we work together. As much direction as you guys can give us priorities for the when, right? If the council is the what and the why, and staff is like more of the how, and in between is sort of the when, right? And we accomplish these, getting direction on what is the priorities is helpful if the council is comfortable doing that, saying wildfire is the first thing out of the game. But yes, in terms of measuring, we try to do the status updates a couple times a year to give you a sense of where we're at, sort of it's a big link, but also, how many milestones we get associated with that goal. And that's kind of how we measure it. With the strategic action, some of them are just, did we do it or for example, some of the goals are just maybe harder to measure in some ways, right? They're mushy, if it's explore, blah, 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 or, we explored it, right? Check, but, did it move the needle? And
I think it's okay to have some machines, because sometimes we don't even know if we actually want to do anything. Just need to gather information about what would we do if we had the chance. Find out if it's a viable goal for next year, I guess. So I don't think it's a bad thing.
And we have examples of that. Where some of these that are here documented, Steve, were ones that were mushy. 2 goal settings, 2 years prior, 3 years prior, where they kind of said, this is something we want to take a look at, think about how we're going to do this. So the next thing came up, the next thing, now they're actually something with actionable. Whereas in the initial stages, they really weren't, because we didn't have the infrastructure or the thought process or whatever to do it. And an example could be the wildfire related sorts of things, which is bubble and top. We've been talking about it for a long time, and other infrastructure type things. So I always this dots, and we making some progress, and then think, where else do we need to go? And I like my goals to be succinct, but they could be.
That's shocking.
I know. What?
it's hard enough. But overall, I mean, I think the last several years in particular, done a great job of setting a direction for the city and being consistent, which I think is helpful for staff, is that we haven't been moving zigzagging this way and that way, chasing the mouse, something. We've been, kind of moving straight ahead on these key things. And I think that, like I said, is helpful for staff because we're not all of a sudden getting yo-yoed in a different direction and setting something else down, already put a lot of time and effort into it. That being said, these are your goals. You can start with a blank slate. You can throw in new stuff. Whatever direction you guys want to go, we're here to help support you in those. Hopefully I don't do a lot of talking today. We do have staff here to help answer questions, and they'll have a part on the agenda, but this is your time to really talk yourselves and reflect on the past year, but also where you want to go this year and what are going to be your priorities. So the way we kind of structure these meetings is making sure that we do have time on the agenda. So the next thing for public input and reviewing that's such a big part of for your community is to hear from your community, be out there, listening to what they find important, and seeing where those align with what we're working on, where those align with your goals, and how we absorb those, implement those, write those into the goals for next year. So I'll go ahead and pivot to that. And there was, like I said, two primary things that we did similar to last year was that open house and the online survey. Let's see what page did that start on.
The back.
Yeah, after the major projects and initiatives.
Numbers, but
Sorry, I have no numbers.
Halfway there. Page 41.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start out.
There we go, page 41. So we asked 2 questions in the online survey. One was what's currently happening in Sisters that most excites you? We thought, this is a chance for people to kind of, maybe it's a question that kind of reflects back on the existing current goals, but also what's been happening that the city's been working on that folks are aligned with. We've heard a lot about dark sky, a lot about the infrastructure, like the new roundabouts,
And that is a great question to ask too. I mean, I think it really helps. Somebody kind of organize their thoughts and then let's start off in a good foot, like, let's talk about what's, going well, which is also great feedback for us, right? Like, because some of these are continuing things, so it's like, oh, people like dark skies, well, yeah, we have more work to do, so that was a really, I think, smart thing to do, because a lot of these things are like, what's your problem? And then.
Yes, 2 questions and 1 positive.
Right, yeah.
Well, I think, again, when we look at what people are giving us, and what we want to see, dark sky came totally out of the work of a bunch of high school students in the community. Not that we had just had really bubble thinking. Here we are, we accomplished step 1, which is the certification. Now comes up with work. I think that when I looked through all of these, and the several pages after I read them all, I did. My eyes get glazed once or twice, but I think that it shows people are interested. They want to tell us what they're thinking. There are things in here we can't do much about, but there are other things again we can do a lot. And I think there's a lot about us that we can do than things we can't.
So I think one way to structure maybe this part of the agenda is there's a lot that I think we heard and saw, and like that are consistent with what you probably is important to you. Wildfire was a big concerns about growth, right? And how growth is managed. I think there was, comments about houselessness and continuing to focus on that. Of course, dark sky was already brought up. So was there anything that stood out to you that was maybe either within those categories that was something new associated with sort of those goals that we've been working on, or altogether new, that was sort of a new idea, like, oh, that's a good idea. Or,
Within the survey or?
in general, in both, because the open house, I think you guys were all sitting at a different table, but some people did rotate, so you heard, from a variety of folks, but some tables may have only heard one thing or heard.
One thing that always surprises me, and maybe it shouldn't, is how many times people come and say, hey, why don't we do this? And I'm able to explain that we're already moving down that path if we haven't stopped it. And I don't know if that means our outreach still isn't enough, or if it's just a social construct that a lot of people don't pay attention to. But it happens so often, and it happens with people I know very well who know what I do, and even then sometimes they go, well, how come we're not doing anything about this or that? And it's pretty amazing. We do so much, and a lot of people know some of it, and some of them know very little of it. Little surprises.
I think that some of that too might go in through the comments. There were comments about they didn't hear about things that we really need to do this one thing. We're like halfway to the goal, and yet read the comment, it's like we're not doing it at all. And I don't know how we get that out. Because not everybody reads what we write in the nugget or goes to a meeting or listens in, but they know what their concern is. And I think until we restrike the cross, people are going to think we aren't doing anything, or until we build a roundabout, people think we aren't doing anything about it. The planning process sometimes takes 2 or 3 years on certain things, and with the exception of folks who attend the meetings all the time and tell us what they're thinking, they see the progress that we're making, but others don't, because they're really, I wouldn't say not involved, but they're not connected.
I think people have very full, busy lives, and for most people, this is it's something that's happening, and something comes up for them. They want to say something, and then they don't have time to do all the fun. I expect that. And so, I mean, you should feel proud that things are halfway down the road. If you see something that someone's requesting, it's like we're there, like, that's how I feel when I see it.
Something that kind of jumped out to me was comments regarding. And maybe under livability. But I've heard that too from people just saying, I've asked people, 20-year-olds, what was it like being in high school here? And well, it's kind of boring. If we had more activities, maybe there'd be less underage drinking. Maybe if we had a little more. Community.
It's, I think that's a very valid comment, but I have both in the education and I have 14 years in parts of recreation. Well, the thing that we're missing in this town, and there's no slam on SPRD, is they're so wickedly underfunded that they really have to target and focus what it is that they do. So in some big cities, the part of recreation is done by the city. In some cities, it's done by the special district. And here, in some places, it's done by the combination school district and the special. And there really is no, in my honest opinion, there's no overall ownership of this. SPRD wants to do it, but they haven't put it in historic space. The school district is focused on their programs that they do with the kids in school and their athletic programs. And they really don't see an opening to open their fields up this arenas and agenda. So how do we handle that? Do we as a city start creation? Do we supplement it with ball fields and turn them over to SPRD to manage and operate? Those are things to look at. But it's, to me, the one thing that's very disjointed in this town is recreation. It's felt that way to me since the day I moved here. And like I said, that's no slam on SPRD. I was in the foundation board for a while. I knew General Holland well, the board well. And but it's just plain disconnected. We have parks, we have ball fields. They don't have ball fields, but they have a building and they're gonna have a pickleball. Okay, but how much of that she's oriented? I don't see a lot of 13-year-olds out playing there.
But they're like, that school is just business community too.
Yeah.
Businesses opening up the cater to
Yeah,
kids.
kids,
too.
that's right.
Just having a station, there's not, everybody who has a kid here, you can't have a birthday party in this. If you go to them and have a
Right.
birthday party, everybody drives to them to have the birthday party, all your sister's friends. And then you all drive back.
Maybe as a city, maybe as a city, we can help kind of initiate those conversations with our youth. What ideas do they have? And invite the school. Maybe we can't come up with the answer as a city or have the responsibility of that since that's in the district. And maybe we have a conversation.
Is it about the
Yep.
the youth?
I think we should have a high school student on the city council as a non-voting ex officio member. They would come to the meetings. First of all, because somebody who's in government, it's a great learning opportunity. It's also an opportunity for us to hear from students about what are the things that are concerning them, what do they want, what do they do. I've seen it done with great success in other places. We had a student represented at the school board meetings in Springfield. And one from each high school. And I think that I saw the benefit to the leaders of the school district to hear the students. I think it would also be beneficial if we had somebody from our high school. I don't really let the building principal or the superintendent pick who that individual is that sits as an ex officio member of the council. And I just think it's a good move. I really do. It's not going to solve some of these problems, but surely can give us a look at this. Somebody under the age of 20.
Our CLI is open to what? Do we take it down to 16?
Is
Good,
and it could really be somebody that's been through that group or part of it, but I would see an opportunity for someone in high school to do it. It could be a student body leader, it could be, I really don't know how that pick would be. I think we should define it.
Yeah, well, so not to get into the action items.
Right.
No,
But
putting that.
But we're getting into the weeds a little bit.
No, this is kind of the intention. So, great example. An idea was heard, brief conversation about it, put it on, write it down, and then we'll come back. Are there any other?
I just like that when we, I kind of just did the math here. It's about 10-to-1, 8-to-1 positive comments on what people are excited about. And I think that shows that we're doing some very good things. Are we perfect? Perfection is not really, I can never get that. Continue to try to do so as I get older, but I think we're doing a good job. And I mean, together as an organization, city staff, city council, a lot of very involved people in the community. So
And I think reading through these, the one thing that I kept in the back of my mind is I wanted to know, and there's no way to ask it, I wouldn't, but I wanted to know how many of these folks live within the city limits and how many folks identify with the city as sister country that don't live within the city limits. We have a much larger population that addresses us that live within a 5 or 10 mile radius city center, but they're not part of the city. And so part of what the struggle for me as a counselor sometimes is, what changes do we make if they're not being asked for by our residents that live within the city limits, that pay the taxes, that are going to support the changes, versus what changes do we make to support the greater area? And I don't have an answer for that. But it may be that that's something we're going to have to look at, and it's just tough. And you can't say to somebody when they say, I don't want the city to grow, to say, well, do you live in the city? You can't really ask that. It's kind of a weird question. Or I think the city is not growing fast enough. Do you live in the city? I think those are things. It's easy for someone who lives in Tollgate or Crossroads or other ranches or Shadow, the small town charm. I don't blame them. I don't either. But is that person more important to me as a counselor than an individual who would be living within the city limits of the county?
There's no wrong or right answer.
No, there isn't. That's
something that you guys.
That's the struggle that goes in the back. We have limited resources.
Yeah.
To the benefit of the community.
And yeah, I mean, approach it different ways. They are stakeholders, right? But if you recognize their interests may not have that city, and the other side.
Yes, they are.
And you got to also recognize that even though the city limits in certain size, you have district and other service providers that they're doing, so impacts your.
I think our comprehensive plan and our vision team, those two things spell a lot of that out. And I still think it's very valid. Obviously, we're continuing work in both of those plans. And I think that is something we can always point to, whether people read it or not, or even aware that they exist. I think that those things are the kind of foundational documents that we do every once in a while that really help with that.
The survey, just so you know about the inside outside, I don't know if we asked that question, but we do know that the majority of our subscribers are from our utility billing list.
Yeah,
so that's how we built that distribution list. So
well, that's good to know.
People have subscribed since then, but not that.
I was just curious. Well, and I know that at the table in the goal setting meetings, it was clear that some of the folks that were there were from Tollgate or one of the other community areas that identify with town, and I identify with them as being part of town. But they deliberately choose to live outside of the taxing district that keeps us operational and allows us to do the things that we do. And so I always struggle with I want to do the most best, I want to do the best for the most common for the best good. And I also want to be respectful of the taxpayers that are already somewhat stretched by the tax rates we have within.
Yeah. Few other things that came in were
I was just gonna say, one thing that jumped out to me was a number of people that called out either organizations or businesses they really liked, which again, that's not us directly, but I think there's a lot of value in that of, some of these organizations we support one way or another. I mean, C4C was called out a lot, which is great. But then like a lot of private businesses as well. And, so that's kind of a, a sign to me that, people are recognizing these organizations and their importance in the community. So, what can we do to maintain, to make sure that they're successful? Some of that is lot to do with that businesses, but it's all about, you pay for Eric, things like business permits and all those things. So, there's just kind of a reminder of, as a city government, just being really supportive of those businesses.
And we're not getting in the way. I mean, that's one thing I worry about. If we try to do too much, we can get in the way.
But I think that at some point, maybe not this next fiscal year, but something to think about is, do we, as you're having this discussion, this sort of what I call the team discussions between SPRD and the school district, and potentially the fire district, but I'm wondering if at some point in time, we partner with them on a new special district organization for SPRD that allows them to grow. In other words, the only way SPRD can grow under the law is to dissolve and recreate a new park district. And we're getting a lot of requests and different things that are big ticket. Swimming pools, ball fields, indoor pickleball. I mean, it's a list of things, all of which would be wonderful amenities for us. But to support that, it's going to take a tax base that SPRD doesn't have, and yet they don't really. I think they're concerned and worried about going out and trying to dissolve the existing district, a new district at a higher tax rate to support it. And it may be something where we as a community need to think about if we partner with them in terms of the public relations campaign and discussing why that's important to the city. How do we have a process should they want to do it? We can't force it on them. I don't want to force it on them. But I think that they are the lowest funded park district, special district in the state, except for Toledo, which is only swimming pool.
Which we don't have.
And they got that because it belonged to the school district. The school district was closing it. So actually, Bob Kiefer, who was on the board, went down special district election to form a special district.
So I know our existing goals that speak to this, but going to have a series of school district, I think we have the fire districts government and the SPRD we're targeting after their election in May. I think they have a couple board members that are open seats. But I know they're interested in it. This has been talked about it last year too, that they're working on getting that meeting set up before they can pivot to a strategic plan to propose something like a reform. Where it affects us, kind of more in the immediate term is park, right? Seeing them as a potential partner for operating something that could be a recreational plan. Do they have the capacity or the budget for that? Even if we are shoveling money towards them, that would be sort of a concern for us as a city. Do we have a support?
And I think I worry about it more than I should, only because I have a background in knowing what it costs to run and do those things from my time with the Lane Park and Recreation. But when I look at other communities, Bend is an excellent example. Bend Parks and Recs rolling money, but you look at all the people compare what we can do in Bend. Well, why can't we have that?
20 million, 30 million.
Well, and if you saw the amount of money that Bend Parks and Rec brings in a year, it's
their rates like one of the highest in the state.
One of the highest in the state, and construction going on, getting tons of SDC dollars. And they don't half the time don't know how to spend that. Not being real blunt about it. I've seen it.
Could turn into the library.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure to mention that there were some letters that came to the city council too. So in addition to the other comments, there were some emails and then some letters from the Partners for Affordability. And then I think last night was a letter from
Chip.
So a couple ideas. Yeah, there's some ideas in there that may come up through the day as we talk about housing, especially.
But we also do a lot of the stuff they already mentioned, and we're
Yes, we do. See, it's the same thing again.
Yeah, there was a lot. I think there was again, it's a company, the board of the city. Their ideas, their thoughts on. either the open house, survey, letters.
It's a great event. I keep doing it.
It went much better than I had hoped. And we had a good turnout, and I think even people who wanted to come and whine or complain a little bit were positive about how they wanted to complain. I mean that, I said, they were not like, you're a bunch of rookies. It was like, can you try to solve this?
There was a lot of fire and ant consternation.
Yes, it was.
But
And
that's
that's the one thing
that
that
was
was
the
not, that's what we, at least about, we to be written to be sympathetic and also.
Yes, well, I'm sure we'll talk about the figure.
And
Yeah.
it's moving daily. I wouldn't suggest we did adopt our own map either.
No.
No.
That's a be manager. Great.
No more math. Okay,
I'll be listening.
and if we're good on nice little warm up activity of going through open comments,
I do want to appreciate all the work that put into gathering the comments, both the running the survey and then having an open house night. I think for me, reading through the results, just, it's nuance and stuff, and you hear just what people are feeling and where their hearts are, and it's really helpful. And so even if like this isn't a lot of new, it might be like one idea pops up, it's not all for naught, even if like we're not grabbing stuff right out of here and doing, I think this is very valuable, so I just want to say it, I'm very appreciative of all the time.
And it's in the public record too, and that's the thing, and really, I think that we kind of undervalue it. Not only are we looking at it, but other people that didn't even hear about the open house or didn't participate, these find one. It's there, and it's kind of there forever, so, it's a good.
yeah, and I think maybe it was something that we can do too is closing the loop on this, both in terms of here's what the council is going to be working on, sort of their goals, but also, hey, thank you for showing up. Thank you for all your comments, because I mean, this community does show up for surveys and for events, and even putting some of their comments in our newsletter or something like, here's some great things that we heard. Or people love the quilt show. People love, the fact that the city is being intentional. Like, I think it would be nice to kind of close the loop on that so people feel like they were heard and like, to look at these and hear them. And, yeah. Okay, now it's time for staff to wake up, because this next part of the agenda is sort of the opportunity now to go through each of the kind of the existing goals and kind of give you a sense of where we're at with these. Both in terms of the document that's the status document on goals, but we also did some commentary on the actual adopted goal sheet where we kind of had staff input on there, like, okay, here's some thoughts about this, like this one's done, or this one we still have work to do, or this is where this one kind of gets complicated and something you might want to consider if you're looking at additional goals in this area. And I thought maybe the easiest way to do this is kind of go by category. So we do like housing, livability, and growth, and kind of work through those. Give you guys a chance to ask questions. Is this goal still relevant? What's going on with the wildfire mitigation group? What's the status on that? What's next with the efficiency measures? And this is also a chance, I think, for teeing up for the next couple hours, putting things on like we've been doing. Oh, it sounds like the idea that we kind of heard about design standards and additional efficiency measures like setbacks and garage and parking requirements. Let's put that on the list and look about having a conversation and adopting the goal. That sound like a something more okay.
Preface the staff, and just another thing that came out of those comments is that you guys weren't mentioned at all, which is a huge compliment. You know what I mean? Like, no, but there wasn't any complaint about service, there wasn't a complaint about the sewer smell, there wasn't.
I think about the wildfire. Should, that's,
So
I just want to give you a shout out.
I just wanted to shout out that, it's the silent arm that we continue running. The best compliment is not get an insult, I guess. Unfortunately, I wish people would say, wow, this place is really well run and a great staff, but I'm in favor. Thank you. You're continuing hard work.
So the first two documents, so you have the city council goal status update, and this is your green, yellow, red indicators, but also gives you sort of the status and next steps and some of those, you'll see, yeah, as you've seen, next step could be things that are happening between now and the end of the fiscal year, right? Again, kind of this awkward, like, you know, overlap of 4 or 5. Some of these goals are coming or next steps are coming, but we haven't gotten there yet. So it kind of does make it a little hazy on, okay, what's the next fiscal year? We're not sure yet, so we haven't had a workshop on this yet. And then the document after that is the goals, but then with we just kind of bolded some commentary on those goals and things that perhaps you might want to consider as you kind of work through this. The first one, housing, livability, and this is really mostly Scott's area on a lot of these goals have been continuing, honestly, for the last couple of years. And a couple of them are like the UGB and the development code, dark skies, which each year has been that incremental approach of planning, staging, you know, implementing, and then a couple of them are more, you know, more value statements, I would say, about, you know, aligning our development code with comprehensive plan policies and things like that, which are really continuing, and they come up as, you know, community has interest in something or as opportunities present itself, like the deferral program or tree code updates and things like that. So maybe something you guys want to talk about is, do we keep goals like that, or do we want to be maybe even a little bit more specific? Scott, I'll let you kind of speak to some of the status or give status updates on these goals, and you know where we stand with things like the UGB and in particular, but also affordable housing.
Sure. Probably related to our efforts to mitigate housing. For the carry those, but we will kind of jump out of order on those days. Obviously these things are never going to be like, hey, someone housing. It's good. We're going to continue to grow, so things are just fine-tuned as we go, and depending on what comes up. Obviously, the push is the year ago, and we're starting to come to resolution. And then once we figure out what's going to take place, then it's kind of beginning. More work that needs to be done to get those areas in preparation for potential organizations and where developments that are coming through or complying with the red goals are for housing, specifically affordable housing. What are those requirements? What kind of housing with rental force areas and demands? We're trying to get those because we're going to need to work on, and that's really largely up in the implementation section of the approach. If you go there right now, it's pretty sparse. So that we can have everything in place when we start getting inquiries about the annexation that we have on this section. Kind of go to these areas and funding this. We do have this part of the scope of the contract with MOG. Start on maybe sooner, kind of pending. We're going to kind of extend the process of maybe waiting the outcome of the reason because we might have result in the process to extend it out of the way. It doesn't mean we're going to have to stop. We're going to start doing some very exercises there. That's the big thing. It's our council request for the council to eat. Be it from the council goal or things that staff identifies or In the case of the tourist commercial, an applicant initiated, develop a code amendment, and those are all things that are important, but take a lot of time. And so we really have to prioritize which ones are most important to kind of take on. One thing I want to consider kind of next year, maybe 2 or 3, 4 years down the road is taking a look at a wholesale kind of updated development code. It's been kind of piecemeal for many years, and there's a lot of things that are probably responsive to what the community's goal values are as much as probably could use updated.
What was the last time, 2019?
That it was a wholesale updated, I think it was more than 2010.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
I was on one of the bigger updates, I think, back in 2010 is that we covered. Okay. Thank you.
Sounds like fun, so.
Yeah.
say you hear something from or make sure you schedule that.
That was my one.
There's some adjustment. Right, there are code amendments. And we just kind of continue to plug them out, it's a big effort. Up to housing, there's it's just full of great strategies. Some, maybe in our community, some that we've started and done already and have done. Just to continue to keep that as a resource moving forward for. That's the dark sky gets us a part of this. All mentioned, you have to say that now we're on work against in terms of the implementation of this with the education. And how we do that, we now have 4 years technically left to bring. How we need the compliance for the public and private. Thankfully, we got a group of dedicated citizens that are willing to help us out with that. Keep our feet to the fire and kind of help us with ideas and implementation, which is awesome. We probably will spend for assistance. Looking at other communities, how they've done it. I'd be grateful with their evaluating the short-term rental code. That was a good process, but resulted in some good changes. So that's, I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but just kind of trying to pump it.
Like, do we talk now, or are we just listening? Because I don't want to go out of process. As I see, we have specific time after break, so I don't want to do a bunch of stuff and be rude.
This is honestly how you guys prefer to do it, but also I think not just listening. I think this is a chance to ask questions and stuff, and also throw out ideas. You don't have to vote on those ideas right now, but like, hey, with dark skies, yeah, I think we should focus this year on. Yeah, let's explore it. How do we do that? And then you could put that, and then come back to like start. Okay, what is the goal here? Does everybody agree? And then like the housing, there's a chance to ask questions, kind of pitch things out there, but I guess then we can come back and shape what the goal is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, is this clarified? Okay, because I have a lot of things to say. It's not just like just brief. I'll keep it brief though. There's time to meet, and I've got 17 minutes. No, actually, so I do feel like I would like to see some kind of housing committee, affordable housing committee. I feel like there's a lot of ideas going around, and I mean, they all come into my head and go, and it'd be nice to have some formal way to address ideas and also to get more consistent conversations with the community nonprofit partners, that kind of thing. So that's just leave it there. And then I'll say out loud, and I sent an email to Jordan, and I'm just going to throw this out there. about revisiting a few, I think more minor STR details. I won't go into those now. And then the other part was, I do believe, like for the dark skies, if we're asking people to do updates, even we should have some kind of pool of money to help people who can't do it on their own, or, try to help find a grant, something that can help people become compliant. Who might not be able to do it on their
Yeah.
And that actually brings me to the document that we've been looking at here, the green dots and yellow dots. I like them, but I also think that sometimes they're a little too broad. For instance, dark sky, I use that as an example, has a green dot. But we've accomplished the certification, but we haven't accomplished the second part. So, it says to me, either we split that off as a separate, because what happens sometimes when these goals, which they drop off this list. That's what's happened in the past anyway. And so we don't want to lose the secondary part, which I think is implementation. So just a thought, I don't know how we solve that, but in the future, maybe it needs to be split into two, or green and yellow, or something. Just so we're saying to people, we realize if this goes out to the community, we realize that we haven't finished everything. We reached the first step. And the Kenny View improvements, which you have as a yellow, will be completed this year, that'll go to green. But are there more things down the road? I mean, so from a planning perspective, we may need to, I like the cleanness of this, but I get one because I went through some of these. If some of the categories are listed and needed to be broken apart into the second step or the third step.
Yeah, some of these they put next step, but yeah.
Yeah, next steps, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the limitation of that format. Some of these goals,
It's not
they're
great.
kind of squishy, then they're just continuing, so you can't win because for mitigation group, it's like,
Read on the top, get it on the bottom. It's just,
I'd like to ask a question that Scott asked manager. Your department, how do you feel your capacity is? One thing's that just sort of goes right over your head. Sorry, we don't get a chance, I mean, we like to keep you insulated through management and stuff for most of the year, but you're right there at the table talking about it, so now I'd like to just ask you personally, maybe, you guys are already pretty darn close. I mean, obviously, we're gonna add new goals, maybe they're smaller and just very early in the process. How do you feel about, just the time of what you already have going? It's been busy couple of years, right?
Yeah. When kind of long range plan project, it's like a one. Small because it's. Talk about. Say needed, but that workshops people really kind of so they do take some time to work. They depends on the space.
And more coming, right? So
but it's kind of balanced with until we get to the exposure of the real world. Certainly we'll get the big post office and probably stop the posting which we've heard is a possibility. Big project. The fuller expensive was not likely to have these. But there's capacity there. There's just a lot of outside the district, certainly I want them all encourage you guys to rest and stuff. So I think there's capacity, but things don't think will fall off.
Yeah.
So there's going to be capacity.
I have a quick follow-up on that, and that's more with you, is do you foresee FTE expansion in community development because of some of this stuff? Okay.
not right now.
Okay.
No, where that would change. Council goals, right? If we start adding committees, which I think is a great idea. You'd be surprised how much time, things like that take, just look at like the engineering stuff. 3 or 4 times, right? You start talking about having their public meeting and noticing minutes and workload, and what's their action plan? What are we doing? That group gets forwarded out to city council, obviously, so there's a whole like flow of work that has to happen. No, I appreciate the question, and thank you for thinking of that, because that is exactly what we're here to advise on. Do we have the capacity to do things? But yeah, I think we've been helped in, we have a very, I disagree, but I think our planning department is concierge services where you can walk in and typically get your answer that day. The turnaround times are pretty quick. We got enough staffing to handle both, the applications coming in and also do some long planning work. I think we've been helped by slowdown in big developments.
I want to echo your concern a little bit, as I think about what's in front of us with the UGB expansion. I'm not talking about the process we're doing. I'm talking about the after effect. You mentioned it, and it's at the top of my mind, that is our annexation process and policy, and getting that to where I would like to see it be on 5. You get that, but in my mind, I would like to see it be. It's not going to be a quick process, and that's going to be a lot of intensive staff. And those are areas where I would encourage you, if it looks like we need to bring in some temporary FTE. I'm sure this is some temporary FTE to help us with the backlog. Maybe they kind of fill in on some of the simpler things to do within the office, so that professional staff permanently can focus on those things. The last thing I want to have happen is to have the things that need to be in place with the UGB expansion, assuming that it is moved forward as we look at it one way or another is done. I want to be sure we've got all those changes to our policies and processes in place before that literally begins the process. Because I want to be sure when lands annex into this city, should that occur, we have the sorts of things we want to see that we didn't have in the last annexation that tied our hands, quite frankly. And so that's, and all these other things have to happen, and that's going to occur right at the time that you're going to start getting master plans for potential land. So
Yeah,
I really, depending on you and Scott to be clear, if some temporary FTE is needed
Or consultant.
that's what I mean. When I say temporary FTE, I'm talking about consultant.
we'll probably tap consultants for some of this code work and specific plan. To the capacity question, and then also to just the department and some of the subsidy that comes with the general fund, grown substantially over the years as we added code enforcement. Like that is, I think it's something that we need to do in our fees for subdivisions. Do we do pre-app fees, master plans, and things like that? We charge, are we cost recovering how much time it takes to process big applications in particular? I think we're charging, and I think it's very business friendly, but at the same time, we need to look out for our citizens that are concerned about that growth should be paid for.
And I want to echo your concierge comment that I hear from the community all the time, and I do, how pleased they are with the reception they receive when they walk up to that window. Which is not a mess. They walk up to that window, if they've got small questions, they go to people ready to walk on the road, she treats them, and how if they get a no, they walk away with a smile on their face. And so I don't want you to think that I'm finding fault with what's going on. I actually agree with that comment, but I also want to be sure that we stay ahead of the curve and not be playing catch up all of this.
This is about personal ownership. You said that STR changes went through, say 7 workshops. I mean, are there, I think, I'm not put you on the spot, but is you come in to meetings, if there are things we can do, to give you the or clearer direction, if that's helpful, the 7 work sounds like a lot, and I understand what goes into that. I know some of the meetings get really stacked, but if we can help you by being clearer or more disciplined in getting a decision faster, I would like to own that. So just putting that out there.
Thank you for that. I think the best suggestion is just to, if you don't understand something, have questions, to come to the staff before, and it's just to, that will help make things more efficient if you don't, sometimes the questions are beneficial. So if there's just things you don't understand, that kind of help you get to the point of making the kind of connection. And if we could do that, then it's I don't know if it's out there. And I know you guys do take advantage of that. So we continue to do that. In some of these issues, there's things you just need to hash out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to shorten that, but if you can get it. I have a few questions up front.
Plenty more to talk about, so we're coming back to this stuff. On the first goal with the houselessness, Terry, do you want to talk about it? You want me to-
Yeah. So I think this was one of the first years that we actually and we have made a lot of progress in that. We continue to work with our partners. We have a draft action meeting, which is weeks. And one of my suggestions is today, one of the probably the pieces that staff the to continue this partnership and to begin to really execute the action plan in partner with the city is becomes responsible for. So there'll be pieces of a lot of that we do. We continue to work with the regional housing council, the board, and those have been more fitting, but the board will be kind of not under the RHC, but starting out into the RHC, and that we haven't met together yet this year. Next month, if that happens. So I think that's been an effective partnership, and I think continuing those partnerships are important. I want to really be understanding what's happening. And I think other than that, there may be some budgetary pieces as we get this action plan ready. That we might need to go with the budget for the city. I think kind of moving forward in that community-based plan has been. Questions?
Yeah, so kind of going back to what I was thinking at the top of the meeting around goals versus strategies. And some of these goals are worded in the actually have strategies. And I'm wondering what makes it more difficult to monitor the progress. This goal to me is to help the sisters. That's the goal. The strategy could be to engage with CLC, and that kind of go.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so I thought the wording was to reflect more of that format, and that'll help with the measuring.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier for the community to read it that way too. Just, what?
Yeah, that makes sense.
One of the hardest things we've had over the years, and Andrea was the biggest person to always talk about it, Nancy too, a little bit, was how do you measure success and what we're doing, right? Sometimes people drop off and that being part of the job is not, but there's no measure. Oh, yeah, 99% or 77%. We just don't have that sometimes. And it's probably the hardest thing that what we're doing is trying to figure out how do we actually succeed.
Yeah, this one's difficult to measure. But I think if we break down those strategies, those each individual can be measured. I know it's more work to put a red yellow for each of these strategies, but I think that would give us a little more focus and help us manage our resources better and prioritize in that goal.
Can I ask a sorry, staff members? So in prior, you would have the goal leverage level resources. Take out, you're asking to take out, then engage. So these bullet points inside would normally be done in our work plans. Versus the goals, are you asking that they be on the goal sheet or in our work plans? That's. Because those would normally, these things are in the superintendent's office's work plan.
Okay.
If that makes sense, but it doesn't have to be that way. I just kind of clarify what the council might.
Do we have?
No, those are more internal work. The details.
I don't think it's get down to that level, but I don't know, I would like a little more, just clean up on goals versus strategies, but it doesn't have it down to it. I don't know, I haven't seen the work against, I don't know.
Yeah, this cities do it in different ways. Schools want to see, and sometimes staff we steer towards strategies and because they are easier to measure. Because yes, you're supposed to have SMART goals, right? They should be measured. But in some ways, the council should have aspirations that aren't as easy to measure, right? Like we want to have the safest community in Oregon. Right now, you can probably, it's an aspiration for safe community. What are the strategic actions? Oh, we're going to officer, we're going to, and pick up our traffic enforcement or whatever, right? Those things are easier to measure. Aspirational, America's friendliest city, it's a thing, but those to me, those are also kind of fun too, because they have signals to the community. Care about safety, we care about an off the park system, we care about taking care of, our houses, neighbors and forests, right? But we also appreciate that the council wants to be able to measure like what's our progress towards achieving these aspirations.
Are you looking just for more specific deliverables, maybe?
Yeah, I see this as, we've got the action goal, which is a general statement, and then we've got our strategies that feed into that. And those strategies can have further detailed action steps or task items that we don't need to get into that, but just see that kind of high level strategy statement as to what's feeding into this goal. I think would be carry it. I like seeing that we're creating an action plan under development. That's a strategy in support of this goal.
Nice. I had one just how this one feels, but and this could go under this strategy or under wildfire. But one thing I feel we need is you were talking recently about the safe parking that Brendan's doing, for instance, researching that, and I was like, well, if we have some sort of wildfire event or something that where Lord knows everybody needs to get out of the forest. We don't have a plan how to at least temporarily place people or park people, so I was just feeling like is that like maybe kind of something like a deliverable or more specific thing that you're looking?
Well, yeah, so when we get to wildfire, we're developing an evacuation plan, and that could include outside of our city limits, obviously, because.
Well, I think there are two steps to taking, but one is we have a fire in the woods, able to keep it out of the community, but it's burning close enough to where the house population is. What do we do? That happens. Then there's the total evacuation, and I think they're two different things. Because in one, you're looking for a place to put displaced individuals within the city. And in the other, you're looking to make sure they're all getting safely to wherever that evacuation point is, right then, whatever.
And that's not even necessarily that goes beyond homeless, because that also could be people from different neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Like I'm driving my fifth wheel and I'm coming down, I'm working at park.
Yeah. And I've seen it done with city parks occasionally, things like that for a temporary place, but we don't have a lot of open ground. We have some, we don't have as much as we think, as some people think we have. So I think that those are good points, and I want to just pick up on where you were with goals and stuff. Near and dear to my heart on those things married to a statistician who also does measurement and here all the time, and also that was something that I included in structural designs. I think I've had to kind of step back a little bit and allow a little bit of flex in the strategy to make the document work without making it so bulky that we can't get through it. So, you know, I think there are some areas of where we should go down. We can see that within this, we call them goals. I actually think they're strategy. Yes, I'm getting there too. Yes,
Separate them, make our lives easier.
yeah. So the question is, it makes our lives easier, but it creates a ton of staff and it's the balance.
They still have a strategy on their list, it's just organizing the document, I think, and communicating it out to our community would help them read it, it's just easier to read, it's easier to understand, because this ties to this goal.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not disagreeing with you. just-
yeah, I'm just thinking about it. I don't wanna create one, I just wanna try to
There was
make
a
it
time,
more succinct.
there was a time 5, 6, 7 years ago where we tried to get it.
Oh, yes.
We're not even trying to, the city is just growing and it's how it is. And we're doing. So
I think my first year in council was like 1.5 to 2 pages and like, yeah.
But anyway,
We're just getting more worried.
it's always a game.
Shall we go move then into wildfire mitigation or do we? Yeah,
Yeah, so the second, and maybe we need to number these, the second goal on housing. Continue to pursue resources, et cetera. Again, we've got strategy at the end. Construction excise tax and non-primary residence home fees. To me, that becomes a strategy that we need to discuss and prioritize. And I would add too, one of those strategies could be exploring the median income revolving loan programs. The fifth goal. Need to update the sisters development code, to bring it into conformance with the sisters company plan. Responding to changes that are to housing. It sounds a little mixed because you're talking about, yeah, we need to update it. You know, whether it responds to needs or whatever. There's just things messy. And I think developing a process to monitor the effectiveness of code amendments, that one statement. Again, that's a strategy to me in support of having good. Sorry.
Right, so the pacing of it right now is that we're kind of we're simultaneously going through this thing. Editing it, but so I don't know if we want to keep going in this method or pivot back to just trying to get the report outs from staff and then, you know,
We can go through this almost
later,
goal by goal.
right?
Yeah. What do you?
Yeah.
either way,
I don't want to derail it. I just want to talk it on my mind and think.
it's fine. I'm taking notes and honestly, like, we're being, as long as we're being productive at the time.
Yeah.
You know, writing things down. Getting everything okay, so. This kind of.
Yeah, for hours, Adam cities do 2-day retreats.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
It all depends on how big you are. We don't have police, fire, or some recreation, some certain. No, but gee,
so the dark sky code, even though we're saying that that's completed, we need a new goal now. For the eradication, right?
Right.
Strategies how to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We'll circle back to that.
question. In terms of your concerns, and I hear them. Does it make sense to go through and mark those ones that we think need to be cleaned up? And then let an attempt happen at that, rather than trying to wordsmith it in here If we have time, we can wordsmith it, but if we can't, I don't know, I don't know if it's a good strategy looking at Jordan or not. But I think there's cleaning up to be done. There's never been a question of that, but it's also always been. Is that just me?
No,
And so, you know, we can certainly make suggestions on areas where we see something done and then. See a document after that, and have a sense of what's Jordan's sense and what's the sense of the other three of you.
Well, we're all taking notes. Typically what we do is, you know, taking these notes, and also we're hearing what the strategic actions be, right? So if we're gonna kind of tool this to be, you know, for example, goal would be continuing with dark sky, and then the strategic actions that we, so we bring that as a goal, bring back a strategic action of implement and then a program. You know, help homeowners, yeah, convert to dark sky compliant lighting. Bring it down. And then we can get it if you guys want further.
So maybe as we go over these goals, then,
Flag them once in a-
yeah, and I think it's worth chiming in to just say. Hey, let's roll this one over, or hey, let's revisit this in an hour,
Yeah.
and maybe keep it to that level, and then we can get into more details a little later today. Just to keep it moving. Not doing well there. Are you doing well there?
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Support full county state federal government. There's a very long plan. Natural disaster preparedness. Thinking it's another somewhere. Fight budget plans that you have to. Your same time, ISO's mitigation plan is also looking for. There's a lot of work there. As we go beyond just wildfire, but for us, wildfire is probably the biggest natural hazard. So we'll be down with that, I think we just support that, and having adopted that natural hazards plan, puts this as a one issue.
Assuming it's there.
including updating our wildfire evacuation plan. Is that a question about, is that a requirement to do that every time?
So everybody wants us. The evacuation, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say evacuation, I meant to say the community wildfire protection. Is it a requirement for us to update?
I think that's what it is. There are this year.
Okay.
The county.
Oh, the county does it for Sisters Community,
Project Wildfire.
Yeah.
but it's for Sisters Area Community, that's the title.
And one of the full representatives.
Community, like, fire, you know, like.
Chief.
Okay.
Mostly, they did ask if, who else, like, we would. Nominate or something to be in the steering committee for that. It is the entire Greater Sisters area.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if anybody's gone back and read that. I did read that in 2019. And one of the things I'm concerned about in going back and spending the time to go back in and update that. Although I see wildfire as a priority, there were a lot of recommendations coming out of that document that didn't get in. So I'd rather take the time rewriting it, updating it, to going back and looking at what we did. Otherwise, we're just gonna keep saying, we really should do this. Okay, it's 5 years ago, that again. So I was a little disappointed in the document per se, or the execution of it, and I don't have the history. So I don't know what happened with the steering committee. I don't know these things that were dropped.
Managed.
I don't know where, yeah, I don't have the history, so maybe I can. Think out of it.
I think this is the difficulties of the position. Smaller city that. Revise fire district, US Forest Service, and the plan fire, resiliency, preparedness, and everything. 'Cause that's the Project Wildfire's document. It's involved, but basically have a representative from the city and then some people in the district and stuff that are involved with that in terms of implementing that. A lot of those actions are on them too. And so that's where we, as the council and staff using our sort of involvement in those committees and stuff to try to push some of that implementation. And then I think the council's been trying to pull things from that, like defensible space and mitigation work we've done our lands within city limits. It's what we have actual direct control over, as opposed to the sort of county U.S. Forest Service.
Do we as a city pay for that plan to be produced?
No, I don't think so.
Historical perspective there, sorry. In 2019, the first year on council, it's exactly that. Why isn't there just a map I can throw on the fridge? And we used that phrase in city council maybe 6 years ago. And the reason is because the emergency management and the way we react to fires and stuff, it depends on what side of town the fire is on. It depends on which way.
We're talking about the evacuation.
I'm talking about, but yeah, no, I get it. But it's the overarching. No, I get it, but it's the overall management thing where I just had to let my brain go and just let it what he's doing in a lot of ways. Obviously, we're gonna work with him when he create a document. But I personally was right where you were at and thinking about all those things on the first term counseling, and I totally pivoted at some point in year 1 or 2 and just went, okay, let's put our efforts in where we can, but at the same time. I could have obsessed over it and I wanted to, but I just had to let it go. I'm just saying now I was reacting. I usually.
I think the good news is that being that the products that CWPP and CPA will be way better. But yeah, but I totally agree with you. I think that there's because I know we've talked about this, that yeah, we can put in some more deliverables and you're not having some specific things in regards to planning and evacuations and
That's within our control as a city.
Yep.
Because I think our community is looking at us for that.
So we frankly do start our question and driving into every spring is good. I noticed it. Firewise can be designations on it.
It's easy, but stuff.
And I'm looking at some of the new houses that are new with concrete planted 4 feet from the house. And those all the things I'm not sure how we get firewise designation, but then we don't really.
Yeah.
I'm not picking on Coyote Springs, but we have areas in town that don't have little plaques up and stuff that we talked about doing this as a goal in neighborhoods, but how do we ensure that once the designation is created, that we don't have homeowners who basically, or builders, who basically ignore the concept of what makes a good fire-wise state area?
the firewise program is something that usually you have to do every few years.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Because they know that it's a very dynamic situation.
So I know that you drive down close to 5 times, it gets worse.
Well, I have to say that having gone through the Firewise process, I actually was not extremely impressed.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
not very serious.
I mean, no, it was not, we did not have to do as much work as we should have had to do to get that designation. That's what I mean by that.
Lenient.
It's very lenient.
I would just start to as we look at where we want to focus, we want to do firewise, maybe want to do firewise steroids. Or something, where we look at what we want to do as a city, looking at hardening and we're looking at these sorts of things, xeriscaping and stuff like that to try to really make our city less burnable.
Well, defensible spatial buildings are being taken care of new development. There's some legislation being worked on in terms of neighborhood protection plans, and then they're working with IVHS too on the potential of having a certification program in Oregon, which could be at the neighborhood level or the parcel level, that I think is way more valuable than the Firewise program because there's that direct linkage with insurance that folks are interested in. And then the standards would be in line with the standards that the council's adopting for the space.
We had to,
Phone pressure system. My house and my neighbor.
Legitimate firewall. 6 feet though.
I think some people will get surprised at what we're talking about. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I think we're gonna get a lot of pushback in the next few years, but I would do. Because we're actually talking about standards that most cities don't even talk about. And.
but I think I think by our comments, there were a lot of people that are like,
They're with us.
what are we doing?
Yeah.
And this is the best time to go at it because of, I hate to say it, but because of the fire gap, people are concerned. And so I think that regardless of where that goes, what ability we have to change that. I think that we have an opportunity as we move forward with some of these goals related to hardening and stuff like that. To be able to say, this is what you've been asking for.
Let's not wait for us to have a mistake, let's learn from other people's mistakes.
And for background, Jordan and I talked to Chief Ruby's Temple of the State Fire Marshal's office yesterday. And it's a meeting that Phil Chang had kind of set up for all of us, and just so we could kind of express to her what we're doing. We're planning on doing here. Is there anything from the State Fire Marshal's office or state level that help? And so she kind of gave us, since she's in has to wade into the world of Salem, that everything has been thrown up in the air right now. Anything can change in regard to the map and everything else. So it's a little bit of a wait and see, but she did one thing she started out with, which she thanked us for being on the cutting edge of this, which we appreciated, but I also reiterated that, like, hey, this is a really heavy lift for us amongst the staff. We've got a UGB we're working on, like, if it would be great if the state was creating code that we could just adopt instead of having to rewrite everything and put so much onus on the staff to do that. So I think she heard that messaging loud and clear, but and their fire marshal's office, they're not ODF, so they're to the map, separate agency. So anyway, it just seemed, I walked out of that just like, it's gonna kind of keep going. I think just keep going on our path, because there is just no definitive word with Salem, and it could turn into a rodeo at this point. So whatever, I think just still focusing on what we know, what we can do to best protect our community. I think it's still the best path forward. And if the state, finally gets ducks in a row and provides some sort of support, that's great. But I think that it's kind of
I think the message was good. That at one point she said the intention wasn't to be the local autonomy for like adopting R327 or whatever. There is bipartisan interest in a fix. The potential for repealing the map and everything has thrown a wrench into what is going to come out of this session in terms of wildfire. But I was like, oh, it sounded a little hopeful that whatever happens, we're going to get at least some more clarity on our goal to implement building standards or building hardening standards in our defensible space, and having the ability of doing that. So the map thing, who knows?
Yeah. So I kind of just took it as walking into this goal session today, is like, we just need to keep on keeping on until the state does other things. But but they're obviously very cognizant on the funding, for knowing that they're going to have to fund, and they already do fund projects and in different formats, whether it's ODF or the fire marshal's office. So but it was a good conversation. She was complimentary of what we were doing, and a lot of work. Sorry guys. Sorry staff.
So when I think about wildfire, I know we're really focusing quite a bit on defensible space, hardening, the prevention of your home catching on fire. But I see that we are lacking a bit in the what to do when it, and that's where we get into having an evacuation plan. Maybe it's in the lab, but are people signed up for the the text alerts, so they know what evacuation zones are in, do they, I mean, all of these things, if we could just have a community conversation more around evacuation, I think that would be.
Briefly. It's a side rail, I mean, a railroad siding, so I'm quiet about it. I'm wondering if there's some benefit to providing some instinct, I see. Training to both the council and I don't know if the city staff has been through or not. The city staff, and the reason I say that
in the works.
is that, yeah, because that way we may be looked at, some of us, certainly staff will be, to be involved in the process of getting people out safely, knowing how that structure works, so you know how to find the person you need to ask the question. That's the key. Oftentimes, you don't know who is in charge. And the whole ICS system designates who's in charge of find them. Little things like blue light on top of the vehicle and those kinds of things tells you who the commander is. And I mean, I've been trained in it extensively in my whole county, but in Lake County, but it's helpful to me. And I look at when I see these big events happening, even like what was happening and stuff, look at it and I'm thinking how beneficial it would be if some of us, certainly staff, but even some of the others of us were able to assist at a low level in some of these things. So you said that this meeting would run. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's all I need, but we can let it go.
Yeah, we're gonna do a tabletop, we're gonna. We have recommendations.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
What does it stand for?
It's a command system, so there's a whole structure that occurs in any major event. And you may see it if you ever watched a briefing, forest fires, they have different people who do different things. And it's all very clearly defined. And so that everyone from every agency knows who they go to ask the question. That's the thing we don't know. Who we go to? How do I find? Because we don't, I don't even know.
And we're essentially not part of that command system.
That's right.
We're just, you know.
We are
So just people.
Look to thinking, yeah. The more we know about it, even at the with 100, 700 level stuff is it's just beneficial. It's good knowledge to have in the back of your head. Hopefully you never ever.
I love the community. So let's at least have the conversation.
Yeah.
So everybody knows you can look at us all you want.
Well, they're probably
KTBC comes through and asks the mayor, well, what do you know?
We need to.
Yes, we can.
We have to have these-
Yeah.
People in our community feel comfortable that they would know to go to find the right information and
Yes,
keep
for sure.
it.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
And we'll find out what other people's.
It does fire, but the school district, all of our schools are in one location. What is their evacuation? I just think it's a wonderful conversation to have. Important.
I think it's fair to say, you know,
Oh, no.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you know, I'm not done. We're not ready.
And if you put these scenarios out there where there's smoke everywhere, you can't see anything. Yeah, people who are visiting our town, if it's the weekend of boat festival and all of these things, we played out these scenarios. I think it would be helpful people to be more aware.
Well, and I think that, but people don't realize even about the system. The first system that will go down will be the cell system. They'll get overwhelmed, and all of a sudden you don't have movement back.
You don't
You
have
can
any
call someone and it's the text we get through because they can burn through the lower level. But I can tell you, like, having been through this, people down in seconds. When most of them have that.
So it's definitely having a goal around.
Yes, thank you. That's right.
Yeah.
We got it.
So in terms of the agenda today, I have we built in a break right now. If I can make a suggestion, maybe we pivot to just doing a goal by goal and a lot of Paul stuff. You'll probably just say, here's what we need to do. This is what we need to do. There's a couple more that probably warrant a little more discussion as we get into park development, development. But for the most part, the big ones are housing, livability, growth, and wildfire. So that's a a lot of that time. The next one, I think it will be. We could pivot to just going goal by goal. What's the
Just wait, Jordan.
I know, yeah.
and then we. You know, we can always schedule. Yeah, let's take a 10-minute break.
We're still talking wildfire, or do we want to move on to economic development?
I think in just the time we move on to economic development and then, kind of like I said before, pivot into, we can go goal by goal. And kind of just get into it rather than what we were doing, and then sure we have plenty of time to circle back to the growth management wildfire categories. That sound like a plan?
Mhm.
All right. Okay, economic development. This is I think we've used this as a catch-all for a couple other things in here, and we might want to think if there's continuing goals for like public arts, for example, that does that go into the livability goal, which is already pretty big in terms of all the things that fit in there, but when you have something listed as housing, livability, there's a lot of things that get captured in that. But we were kind of talking about this internally, and things like parks and art stuff is about livability. So those probably do more belong there. But definitely I see where it makes sense to with it being under economic development. So under economic development, you have the finalized project concepts and conduct public outreach for the multi-purpose recreational facility. So we that's something that Paul's been and Scott have been working on. There's the RFP out for, is that today?
Today.
That's today. Almost by the time we're done here, that will have those proposals in for doing a master plan project for that. And that's going to carry well into the next fiscal year. I think the big unknown there and the big maybe thing that we need to talk about would be how do we fund what's going to come out of that master plan? Likely it's going to be something that might be phased, but you know, if we're talking ice rinks or pavilions, we're in the millions. Yeah.
Cash.
We need all.
As part of the process, we're requiring people to look at funding options strategy, specifically around SCCs and geo funds. So good guidance on that.
Smart.
So the question would be, does this still sit on your goals? Adopting a master plan and beginning implementation of a funding plan?
I say yes.
I think parks and like this kind of infrastructure part is key to keeping the community piece of our growth. Yeah, I think we can't not do that.
But yeah, I don't have a problem with being in economic development, but the reality is it's probably underneath the essential infrastructure and livability to me. Eventually, where it is, but you know, it can be an economic engine to bring people into town to you know, those sorts of things. So it's one of those nebulous sorts of things where it's simple. And I'm okay with where it is now, but I think we keep the goal.
Yeah, this is the destination management.
Yeah.
I think the original sort of concept for this was that it could be a recreational facility that would support the off-season tourism, give, you know, sort of that economic engine boost, but also it needs to be an amenity for our residents here.
Yes.
Youth services, teen services, a place that people here that live here could spread.
Well, and it, like I said, we kind of joked about ice rink, but you know, the design can be done in such a way that it's a 4-season facility. When you're not doing ice, you can do something else on that same space. So
Lower.
yeah, 7,500.
2,500 acres.
That's the whole point. I think. Really quick though, I really think that it really kind of leans towards our providing more park acreage for our population and raising that number up to our new standard. You know what I mean? We gotta keep doing.
It's really, understanding the economic development part of this, it's just, it reads a little weird being that it is under this. Because it makes it sound like that's our first goal is to bring people in and our second goal is, oh, and for the people who live here, by the way, you can use it too. That's how it reads to me, and that's not our intention, I think it's the other way around, it's something for people and sisters, but also it would be super great if it, helped us economically, so I do struggle with it being under here, but
Any reason we can't just move it?
No,
move it, yeah,
Thank you.
but yeah,
I wasn't gonna argue, but I was like, okay.
I mean, we can't really get caught up too much on
Right.
which thing is under, because the goal's the goal, goal.
yeah,
But I totally agree.
Well, there's two more bullets under economic development, and there is a question of what is the goal under economic development going forward for the council. We still have a couple years left on EDCO, which my thoughts from council seems to be that they're supported, they're doing a good job. It's necessary to show that we support businesses, but we're interested in retaining, recruiting more trade sector. I know there's been talks about how do we bring all the different efforts that are going on in our community together? What's the city's role in economic development, not just with traded sector with EDCO, but also Main Street businesses with the New Business Association, the Chamber, and Explore Sisters. And again, the key term is what is the city's role? What does the council want the city's role to be in those efforts?
I'm with you, I think that the Eric piece is important. I'm not sure how much we can solve and how much the city's role should be in solving, other than being a partner and enabling it to occur. The rift and the fact we have associations that are kind of working it counterproductive to each other. I don't think the city council can tell a chamber what to do. I don't think they should. I don't think that a chamber can tell the city council what to do. And that's probably, the small business association, the citizens association, that one's giving a little bit of traction. Some good people there. But
I think the long-term play is probably figuring out if at some point in the future, and I'm not saying next year, but down the road is how much do we want to put into economic development by having somebody on staff that has a percentage of their time, whether that be Eric or somebody else. And I think, I've kind of said it out loud before, because I think when all the annexation comes in and there's going to be more employment links, people are going to see that, know that, and be looking at it. Eric himself might not be enough, I don't know. Or we can decide to have some staff time to that. But I just don't, this next year, I think it's keep on keeping on for the next year. General.
And just try to be a good partner as best we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that
That's the real key.
what I'm hearing say, Gary, is that we don't want to put a lot of hours into it, but it's really important that the organizations in the city that are helping our businesses, they work together. So anything we can do where we find a place to do it, we should do it, but it's not like let's make a big focus of it. But it feels to me like to show our community that we care about them, our business community, that we should have a goal, even if it's not the highest priority, the highest time taking up. And it was
also, we don't mention, we mentioned EDCO, right, but we don't mention Explore Sisters. I think that it's worth at least mentioning, and there's just, continued partnership, because we're writing them a big check every year. But those EDCO and the Explore, two entities business wise that we are most invested in. I think it's at least worth a bullet point.
Yep.
And I think, when we read through the comments that came in, it pops up in more than one place, and in some places, we're still getting a blame for moving from the council, I mean, from the chamber to the DMO for our marketing, to the city people. There's still some misinformation out there about why and what and how. And so we have to be aware that that's there, and like I said, that comes back to, let's be an enabler, let's do what we can do. And try to foster the growth, but I don't see us stepping back and going in directions. Where the direction we're going is the right one. And I agree with you, we should probably have export systems somewhere.
As a partner.
As a partner, yes, thank you.
Was there anything in the strategic plan, the strategic plan, that would be something that we would look at helping EDCO implement? Just thinking of something that's action.
As the new person, I defer to the last.
Okay.
You know, I wish I had read. Eric?
Yeah. He said he was gonna Zoom, so Eric wants to text one.
Eric, are you here? Is he on? But. Okay.
There's two like kind of sub parts of that too. Is the workforce housing and childcare. Which I know the VAP continues to have a group on childcare. Workforce housing kind of Eric's definitely a partner in that, right? He's out there, he's hearing from businesses about the need for housing and stuff, but that's also it lives somewhere else too with council homes. So I don't know if we want to be that explicit.
I like the word that we added. It's partnering with them. You know, you can kind of add little bits of information in there if you want to. He's going to do it whether we put it on the poll.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the childcare thing is, I mean, we made a lot of progress, which is great, but it's still pretty tenuous, so, I mean, yeah, it might be worth keeping there. I mean, we could take it off because, yeah, we did move the needle. Keep it in there.
I'd keep the childcare in there because it's tricky, and the tricky part is the regulations and the things you haven't had to open one up at some point.
Yeah.
They really is restricting in this town because of the facilities.
Even what we have and what we have coming is not enough, so I think we keep it in there.
Okay.
You want to ask Eric?
Eric, are you there?
Probably, yeah. It's one.
Oh,
Are you
Okay,
there?
now.
yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. There was a question?
Yeah, strategic plan.
Oh, we're reviewing the economic development goals as you've been hearing, and I had the question: was there anything from the strategic plan from last year that would be something the council could consider as part of expanding upon a general goal around economic development?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the hardest initiatives to get moving is, I know we're always talking about workforce housing, but doing something with the employers. I've tried to start that and it just hasn't really gained any traction. I'm thinking maybe the city could, on your side, do something to, a carrot of some sort to get something moving. There was talk about dorm style housing, and some of the businesses were interested in that. I mean, it's a big lift, right? You have to have land, you have to have, you have to probably build something. So it's in the strategic plan, but I'm not really sure where to go with it. And maybe the city could do something to help with that.
Or at least at least further the conversation, right?
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah,
the first year is just is there ways we can partner with businesses and economic development to find different housing opportunities for workers or something?
To go back to Sarah's comment earlier, you know, putting together a housing. So that's something that's been on my radar a long time too, and that would include some, you know, people from the business community and, you know, I think having, you know, that might help in that respect, in getting it.
And
Yeah,
then
and-
obviously the crossover piece of that.
Yeah, the Northwest Housing Alternatives was a good step, right? Because Clayton, you know, brought in a bunch of companies, talked to them, went and visited. How many people do you think you would, you know, do you need housing for? So that was great. But that's, you know, one project that's going to fill up really quick. And the other part, I think, is you know, tiny home overlays, that kind of thing, or maybe dormitory style overlays in zoning. That would certainly open up the ability, like it has for cottages, to have something happen. So that would be helpful too. I mean,
So
housing
if
is
we have
our.
a housing committee, if we establish one, do you think you'd want to be an advisory person on that committee?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, housing is the biggest hurdle for sure,
Okay.
by far. I mean, we can work with transportation, you know, we're making some inroads on childcare. So those things, you know, you can kind of manipulate and work with, but housing is just, it's a monster.
Is childcare in your strategic plan too?
Yes. I'm not looking at it, but I know it's in there.
Any other questions for Eric?
No, just thinking.
I'm supposed to thank you, Eric.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, the last one on here, public art. We have a workshop coming up. Gary can go into this, but you know, really this was the topic last year, council interest in, let's continue to push on public art. Let's do more. We got the roundabout coming up. That process is going to be playing out. What are some other opportunities? And so we're planning on a workshop here in the next month or so to kind of scope some things out. There could be a goal here. It could be a general goal about, you know, investments in public art. But I think we have some more specifics too that we want to sort of pitch and talk about. In particular about what we have control over immediately, right? With installing pedestals, maybe jumpstarting a program where artists can bring their sculptures to town, chance for maybe public to weigh in and buy to add to the collection. And we were looking at the East Portal as a good opportunity for an art block. Soon to be renamed East Portal.
Yeah, but I'm clued in with a lot of business people on this. And there is significant interest in a mural program and something to that effect. Is that part of what we're going to talk about at all?
Most of it to start at what our program is like across different entities, and then how they're funded, because that's a big piece through things. So your policy, so we technically have a little bit of that. It could be something with the council district that you could have that would be updated. For that, we have an art policy ready. That kind of addresses that, but it's really that's a whole piece because that would mostly
Right.
different.
Yeah.
And it's not public art. I mean, there's a big distinction between what the public can see and we're public art. Public house, public city. Yeah. So it's kind of, it's hard to distinguish with me. That's
No. Yeah, I see the difference. I just know that there's a few buildings that would love to see more and that would offer a side of it.
And they are more than welcome to do that process. Not at this point, which very good one to go with that private side would be anything other than we need to adapt. Do some right now. So
It isn't a lot piece of it's something that they just have to come to the city and say, hey, I'm interested in doing this. What's the process? And we have the ability to do that.
I think we need to. update policies.
I got you.
And development. New development. And then municipal.
Yeah, I think I would be interested in just making it as easy as possible without making a huge goal. Doesn't even have to be a goal. If we're heading in that direction, it's okay.
Does it live in the sign code or do we have a separate?
It's definitely, it's, I want to talk about.
And you get into speech.
I think that I'm just leading into the conversation. And planning to see if we can get it bumped in April. As a council workshop is the conversation. What it looks like. Where potential funding comes from and then a set of ideas that we have to next year. Without being completely potentially formalized with the committee and the other things quite yet. And I think so you've got to go through the what other communities look like and do you can apply that process. But yeah, not a slow walk, but a thoughtful. Because funding to see that the rundown art is not inexpensive.
I think that interesting, that whole discussion, and we talk about private art, or whatever the word you want to use inside some building, we probably do have to have some thought about how we make sure that it's not, it doesn't violate our sign. So, you know, I'm looking at you're on the side of the building, it's gonna say, drink so soda, and we have it inside right now for extra special, and it's the price, I mean, it's €1, but is it a business sign or is it euro? When I think euro, I know euro too. It's things that denote the town, that benefit the town, that were.
Pretty.
Well, in keeping, we're just in keeping the nature of it. So,
Well, I
I
think.
mean, Mike could have a mural on the side of the building with a set of building plans on it. See, Mike.
But like what Gary's talking about is something that we have control over as a city.
Right.
Whereas the other piece, there may be some code to adjust, but in my mind, that comes to either working with a local nonprofit who might want to take that their way, you know, like starting a mural program or something like that. You know, that would be not in our purview to do something specific about, but might be something to encourage. So I feel like.
Just, yeah, I just want to get it on the radar.
Yeah, no.
I think it's a good idea.
One thing that's been bouncing around my head for, I think it's here was. And then magically at the SBA meeting last night. Same thing, and I said, I'm gonna talk about this tomorrow. Is a program that we don't, again, this would take a partnership, but I think permitting a bus or program. So that it's organized so that, you know, musicians or maybe, you know, artists or sketch artists, magicians, or, you know, illusionists.
Or even Santa, you know, or just,
Yeah.
you know, parent thing.
Yeah.
Lots of things to fall into.
But a way that we can have promote it, but also have a little bit of control around it, so that it's like, oh, here's some designated spots in town and because she was kind of talking about it from a business point of view. I think there's a lovely relationship. I think some businesses would love to have a musician out front because it kind of draws people to the end of the street and they walk into their business. I think sometimes people are annoyed by them, so but you know, we do own public chunks downtown, the city does, and if you had a permit, you know, like a very cheap permit system, but then that way you can be like,
Put some parameters.
here's your space, here's your times, there aren't perk boards or anything, you know.
The park until it gets dark.
You know, and then we, you know, there could be a little bit like a thing you sign saying like, you won't profanity or, you know, just, you know, and it may be a very, obviously, these are farmers, so a very low permit fee, you know. But, and obviously this is, I think, and I think there's, you know, like she owns a business, and she's like, I'd be happy to organize that, because her business already does a lot of, you know, positions and stuff with their business, and or it could be folk festival or something like that, but it's just, I've always felt that for a city that's known for music, I could use a little bit more. And a nice, official way for people, especially. Get in front of people, so, but yeah, I would definitely want it. Parameters and some regulations, so.
Interesting. It's an interesting thing, because I mean, I think about all the other cities I'm in, where you do see this in different places, and they all have it, and we have a school full of talented musicians who might take advantage of it too, just to get a little bit of public exposure. I don't know how, it's an interesting concept. I want to see how it would work before I would say, yeah, let's, we're not gonna do. But,
Do we have prohibitions against this? I mean, this is kind of speech. Is it just noise ordinance or transient requirement with this? I mean, carolers and the, Christmas time. I mean, I don't.
never really thought about
They're not really specified in any.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's stopping people from grabbing their saxophone and playing on the street.
Or not,
Just they're disturbing
it. It's
these.
cold.
Oh.
Yeah, it's cold. First, next one.
Grass.
Mardi Gras, very cold, yeah.
Well, then you bring up this whole thing too. I have random connections of somebody was related to somebody that, a high school kid that lives in La Pine. He's a great musician and comes up here to like Sister Depot or something for open mic night because of being underage. There's not a lot of places, most, venues or bars and they can't go in, so there are very for younger people perform again in front of people. Interesting. Just an idea, but I just thought it was kind of business as, another out of the blue last night and then, yeah, good. I'll bring it up.
So moving on from economic development, I think we have one goal that will continue to sit there, but a couple goals that will move to livability. If that sounds like for sure Northwest Park relocate. And then the next steps on the public art program. Kind of, I think feels like there's a little bit of ability.
I'm a little more okay that it's in
Okay.
at the moment, but I mean, you're right. I mean, it depends on what it is.
Okay. All right. Essential infrastructure. This is the period of the meeting where Paul gets to give you all the great updates on our very expensive buried projects.
Yeah.
And some the buried.
So I think just a little bit of historical reference to. It really started to gain contraction when we dated our transportation, water, wastewater, and our master plans, which was completed in 2023. And then we went into, now we got to finance this project. We initiated rate updates of our utility rates and our rate. And we completed that this past year. So there's been a lot of work that's going on. And now we're actually started to see dirt fly and work out on the ground start happening. So with that, I'll just touch on these briefly. Ask questions. Our well one improvements, we're saying well one, well three together. And we're just wrapping. Be ready to go out to bid for the spring, like take you the water usage. So we'll have to strategize with engineering. Did that late spring or late summer with a fall construction when you want. The new reservoir and the 16-inch Edgington road line. We got preliminary engineering done here in EPA process for figures of cost that we're going to actually federal staff to do that. And it's really scary because it's got to be everything. Even Edgerton Road is on federal property.
That brings my question, and because we talked about wildfire. Having that 2.2 million gallon reservoir there as some additional water capacity and the larger feed line in town. Could be the difference between success and failure.
And a couple of fire hydrants
Yes.
for the Forest Service and structural firefighting apparatus. Even though it's outside of the city, agencies and they're pretty excited about it.
Well, and even protecting the infrastructure itself. You know,
Absolutely, and we've seen that area. Structural fire, actually not traffic lawns.
And where are we at with the fuel production around the reservoir site?
It did, yeah, so well, everything got, the thinning got done. Everything's stacked, I don't know if they burned or they'll burn this spring. Or if they're gonna be burned. But the thinning was the first.
Okay.
The west side of Road Street pump stations, we chose to same. Joe. The west side is over on Pine Street, where we're taking the entire west side of school to those cold springs. We're putting a pump station on Forest Service property on Pine Street. Road Street pump station up the tree. So it's a little under a mile. The forest main is gonna go in, including Cascade and then again Pine Street and Joe. Can be very impactful. We haven't seen type of projects since the sewer system went in back in 2000, which is exciting for us and so much for the we're looking to have, we got the line at 95% right now. We're going through permitting on that, which is the Deschutes County, DEQ, ODOT, and Forest Service. So we got a bunch of agencies right now. Our engineering crew is anticipating the bids out mid-April. I'd be surprised, but we might, if we get initial feedback from the agencies that it should look good, we'll parallel that process. So we can get ready to, the big thing is start the west side pump station through this summer, which we can do. Not affect tourist traffic. Get the building in, get the pump station in. You know, those Labor Day, we can start ripping down and Lake Forest. And we want to get the west side pump station, but we're diverting, and this is half the flow. Essentially half the canyon to Road Street, get that diverted, and then we'll jump in. Road.
Are you going to be water in the Cascade?
That's, yep, we're yep. And then the latency, we got the pivot design, we got the transmission line design for the pivots. We are going to update our reclaimed water use plan, and we're going to do that in conjunction with the overall wetland plan. So we're only doing it once versus having to do it twice. So that's going to be, that's a big project. We got another year of design and permitting for construction. We're thinking fall.
Just
Yeah, we're looking for getting in the fall, but we'll be one more year.
this would be nice to get rid of those canines staff.
And we won't completely get rid of them, we'll be just moving it. But the idea is to get the design of the project development to go through the process.
How much foresight do you need to have regarding UTP and alternatives and that may impact your funding strategies or anything?
So we updated the water and wastewater master plans. We looked at the existing UG. We didn't know. It's tough to make assumptions, especially when you're designing big infrastructure projects. We can factor in, 50 acres, 100 acres. We didn't know that information. So that's all going to come through that annexation master plan process. We were thinking in our head, if the street, everything is going to basically drain down to there. We better get the west side pump station in, so we got capacity for that. So we set ourselves up for that. We also the west side pump station for the additional 50 acres as part of the base. Because we felt like that was a realistic chance. Whether it happens or not, we might be a little oversized. So it's kind of, we're trying to be strategic about it, but without being exactly. And then at the end of the day, whatever gets brought in, they have to mitigate their impact. That gets back to what Jordan was saying. We need to make sure that growth is set up to pay for it. So if all of a sudden we need bridge steward place or existing 18-inch, the burden. So they would replace, the pipe, yeah. But yeah, if you are oversizing, you're paying.
The master plans took into account population growth projections, but we couldn't identify where the city, what direction the city. Right. Things that Paul mentioned. Side of town, so, but in terms of pinpointing where a new pump station size of pump, even with like transportation, that might be a future goal next year, the year after, updating this. Now, I knew the growth boundary, what is the transportation network? I think the area specific plans will probably capture a lot of that, right? If like what is the important like in those expansion areas. But it comes up a lot with water, right? Do we have enough pumping capacity? Do we have enough wells, to accommodate that growth and application based off of not water tomorrow, but water 2004.
And with the school property up there too, you never know, we might develop some teacher housing and everything. It's good that you have that west side pump station already. You don't have to dig it up 3 years later.
Yeah,
So thank you.
when we master plan, we basically where to go, but the resident do the
Do you think there's any value in beginning to visit? You said years ago there was an idea to put a water tank up on Butte, and that was kind of shot down. Do you feel like that is worth? Because these things take a long time, we're revisiting that idea if the city grows in that direction. And I know there was pushback many years ago, but now we're in an age of fire threat and insurance being pulled. And because you said it was even proposed that, we put in fire hydrants, up there for that neighborhood as part of like the deal process. And I'm just wondering if times have changed and attitudes change and there's any strategic value placing something in that corner of town, especially because it's a short distance with a lot of infrastructure. So, or is that, are we not there yet? Or?
I think everything's on the table. We started looking at impacts. That would be the thing that you're like, okay, we need storage in this part of town. So, guys, and we're going to really put the developers to come up with some of these things. So I would love to have it. They were leaving there today. So, yeah. Absolutely. Barkley improvements, super excited for that, we they're gonna get going early April. It's interesting, the timing of that, because the property that you guys texted me for, we're starting to get some interest from the developers. Just heard from an engineering firm yesterday, that this afternoon, about they're going to need to bring water line for on-site fire members for that development. So, yeah. So timing's everything, because I hate cutting. But I've already reached out to our contractor and said, hey, we may need to link you and the developer up to get this, at least get the water line stuff out and go on. And then and then we'll take each path, that last connection just Barkley up to some range. That'll help get in. But again, with this project coming in, I'm gonna pull back and let them do their work so for them, what they're doing.
Question that popped in the back of my head, actually going around the corner the other day up there. I love the design, it's gonna be great, and really help a lot, but if we end up with that priority one land that we've been talking about, opposite that, in that area, and the type of housing that's going in, are we thinking we may need to look at around that intersection, opposed to what's going in? With this design, something, or it kind of keeps that in mind as the design was built, in other words, do we have to do a lot of realigning? We did on Barkley, that.
Everything's teed up nicely. But yeah, if that when that project was in, that one. But the thing that we need to think about though, we construct this thing beside it. That's constructed on either end, which are huge.
Yes.
So you want a roundabout there, and we're gonna have to work through that with our transportation. Because in our TSP right now, whatever we do up there, we need to do. And if some of it doesn't throw away, it is, but I think it's still worth years of life out of it.
Okay, that's another question. I haven't got a problem. It just popped in my head as I was thinking about it. And I agree with part of the size of the one to the other.
That has to be, you got
Yeah, and if UGB does expand in that area, people that are going to develop that and have to know needs.
Well, there's no doubt, because I certainly see widening and improvement that part of locals.
Because by that time, I need both of the property. Both.
Potentially, yeah. So with that, I've already tasked our engineer project to go back the cost estimates for phase 2 they did a couple years ago when we did the whole floorboard design. We got new construction environment, we got new pricing, a lot of bidders showing up, more competition and equals to the bids. So we're hoping that 4 million, which we're taking $1 million, the 3 million price tag comes down, where we can start coming up with a funding strategy to get phase 2.
Just say now that it needs to be its goal. It needs to be there.
Yeah.
Phase 2.
Yeah, I mean, really, got the roundabout done, get this Barkley phase 1 done, 2 top priority projects. Need you guys to happens. So both.
Do we have penciled out all the phases of the Barkley project?
Yeah, there's 2 phases and then we have the entire thing design. So it's literally just coming.
It was this month, and when the bid initially came in quite a bit higher, so phase 2 was kind of pushed back.
The initial cost estimate came in 4 million. Yeah,
So hopefully with a better construction environment, that cost estimate will come down.
And phase one case below.
yeah, we finished that, I think that's 1-1, and we were just.
Yeah, and I know urban renewal is the goal, but Adams has urban renewal as a source, but it also has a price tag that exceeds right now, exceeds what we have in terms of capacity in urban renewal. So Paul's point about your input on how to prioritize these two projects, because we probably need to subsidize Adams with some street fund dollars, and we don't have enough to implement all these things in the next year or two. We might have to wait for Parkway Phase 2 or wait on Adams, depending on which one pull the trigger on first.
We're not feeling very optimistic about rare.
And street SDCs are not coming in as strong.
Yeah, which that's another part of our goal. Real quick update on the street. This is going along painfully slow, as made for sure, but we are just getting through our land use agency review process. We're still getting that wrapped up. Get the bridge design right now, geotech. Ready to come out and do the geotech work of bridge abutment for the bridge design. And then once we get that done, then we're going to be ready to come up and get everything out to bid, and not opposed to constructing during the summer.
So if you look
Outside of the roadway,
the whole picture.
it's going to leak into.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to get it out for bid this year. Yeah.
It'd be a little hard on bicyclists because that is the most popular road in town, just about.
It is, but we'll be outside in the traffic, so it'll be any different.
And when it's done, maybe it'll be a static.
That's it.
We'll have nice color signs for them as they're getting by.
I would run it. And if we-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's really meeting you are.
Yeah, that's.
That wasn't me.
Another, I feel like I'm. On that topic, idea that's been bouncing around my head, that I've got, there's a lot of public input about, bike ped issues. And, from a lot of people, and, I know I'm biased, but I've been, for like a year or so, I've been wondering if Sister City or Sister's Country needed a kind of a bike ped advisory committee. And I kind of felt, no, we're not big enough, whatever. And then suddenly, again, these people started bringing issues. We do need one. So, that's something I would like to, either have or explore the idea of, two iterations of that. It could be like a city committee, right? That's city, but a lot of these things really bleed out, in the city limits. Whether it's, STA for service, or, the county is actually, or ODOT is actually going to start a very high level process into looking into community connections, path connections between Sister, Redmond, and Ben's. They do have the funding to do that, and at a high level plan. So, anyway, it's just something that, and I definitely felt like there was not that it's on 17. And I'm not saying that the city needs to totally own it, but it kind of, yeah, because I think between this and also the future planning, because that's something, it's like, you want us to still be walkable, there's people like, I don't like growth, but I just want, I want people, when there's a lot of pre-work that goes into that, it'd be nice to bring this. I think you guys at the committee are really focused on that, so then take some of the weight.
I'm for a goal to explore it, or I mean, we have to make a decision, yes, let's do it, but I think it might be one of those ones where we don't get it in the goals. If we don't do it soon, it might not ever happen.
Because I've been having the same thought I've been discussing. I'm thinking the same, put a goal, and right now in my mind is probably more regional. than it is just a city, because I think we have to think about those regional connections. But I don't really care how it's put together, but I think it's something that we should put in as a goal to explore. It's the creation of whether it happens this year or we do kind of a foundation work and see what.
Is that infrastructure? I mean, is that the right place?
See where
Just that.
yeah. With the interest is, I'm not trying to work with the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to be sure.
You know, we have to public advisory bill.
Yeah.
And well, maybe they can get it started, you know, you're the council liaison. For PY, who's got PY?
I wanted to shoot it.
So that would be, yeah, that would be something. Could be a direction. Council, hey, you guys. All up the bike and ped plans and the TSP. Let's start taking a look at what's been done, needs to be done. We're planning on. It's part of a work plan. Under good governance, to update our transportation SCCs, which is updating project list. And that work can be updated by that project list for the SCC.
So it's the pressure line is in down. Jefferson, right?
Yeah,
Will that do the asphalt surface?
in areas, yeah.
And so the question in the back of my mind is, it's way out there, then, is if we're gonna have to do new asphalt work, does it make some sense to consider that instead of Washington as part of that bicycle corridor? Because, I mean, right now, Washington is a hard street to walk. For some reason, and most people watch Jeff, and that's what they go up and down Jeff a lot. But I just or Alex. Yeah, with one together, just with the back.
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna be rebuilding Jefferson, we'll have some cross beams, that type of thing.
That's all. That's fine. We gotta say that.
I think that sewer main crosses the west side.
Yeah.
Crosses the road for the north part of the road, the south part of the road. I think time we can't go across.
I've been looking with markings.
Yeah.
Right where. Basically, right.
I was saying with me. It's gonna be an ugly cut and close and open, cut and close.
Okay, diving into parks,
I think it's be.
we've got the. Already talked about. Northwest Park Master Planning process. Category. And then. We got the budgeted contribution for the.
Wait,
That process, they're obviously, they completed the design, they're doing the land use process right now. Then I think they're getting ready to go to construction, so.
Yeah, some. And that, I talked to Jen Holland yesterday actually about having a joint meeting with their board, but also doing a tour of the improvements over there. So they're gonna be moving between now and I think through spring break. Moving everything over to the new community center.
Well, those parking in school.
No, that's done, and then the school district after the school.
Right.
Without school, we'll be moving their operations.
And this, in the back, I just want this group to think in the back of your mind about that building. I look at that building and I see opportunities, I don't know what the hell they are, but I think it's a historic building. And it's right at the gateway of our town, and how much do we, I mean, I realize I'm talking money, I'm talking a lot of things, and the school didn't want to spend money. Is there an opportunity with that building that we should be thinking about, and so we're ready to have move with that? So I'm gonna throw it out there, I don't even throw it out.
We take a joint meeting with them, they are talking about doing a rezone potentially.
Right, and that's the question is it, if there's a rezone done, is there a reason for us to want to look at what sort of rezone goes in there? I mean, there's just reasons that building offers us some opportunities. I don't even know what kind of condition it's in. I've never been through it to know.
as you already know, they're kind of reticent in actually giving up facilities and land, so I imagine it would probably be more likely to be cooperative. But where they still own it, but I could be wrong,
They've been talking to selling it to help.
Yeah. Pay for it.
Backfill some of the costs of the new elementary. Things like that.
Eric and I have already called them and.
Yeah,
Way in advance.
yeah, you're gonna. But anyway, I just want, I just want to put it out there in front of people. I don't think I spend much time on it, but I think we need to be ready to either say, okay, we're not interested, let's rezone it and go from there, and or we should really consider what kind of a rezone is going to happen to it, so that we have some control over what goes in there.
And at least be nimble about it, whatever that is.
I'd like to see the building stay. The
Right from city.
the school district admin building, which is a former. Yeah,
It has a really cool base stuff, too. It's got a lot more women.
yeah, I don't, like, I haven't been in it, but I presume what option for please. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a great shape, yeah. Yeah, right, the building's pretty solid money. It's on National Historic Register, but that doesn't prevent it from being down. We'd have to have a state.
they tore it down.
Yeah, I think you have a local designation that makes it harder to.
There's been so much kind of controversy of the Wakefield. That it just seems like anything with this building.
Believe me.
And so maybe it's worth having a conversation with like the historical society to say, hey, if you want to get rid of that.
I've mentioned this as like. You should need to get one of those out.
Yeah.
Please get ahead of this anyway.
So anyway, it's like I said, I don't have a solution, I don't have an answer, I just wanted to put it on the radar for the five of us, that's an area of interest of mine. And because I think it's an asset to the community, I'd like to see it preserved, number one, and I'd like to see it stay some kind of a public facility. Or you know, B&B or something like that. But, regardless, it's our neighbor and it's part of our city. I see it as part of the city.
And I think if in the rezoning process, remember we had the issue with the food cart. Out there last year, and you know, there was that little kind of misinterpretation or easily misinterpreted part of the code in regards to the Cascade Avenue and all that. I think that we agreed that we needed to go back and fix that, but I don't think that's happened, so maybe just if they do come in for a zone change, to clean up that. You remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Cause you know, that could mess up their ability to do anything. But that'd be a good opportunity to do.
And then there can be a safety improvement, here's from Drake, we're gonna be constructing the third speed hump that will connect Meadow Village to the school, as well as across Brooks Camp, doing some pavement cleanup on the path through there, root damage. So we wrapped up the spring. Gotten great feedback. You know, that investment.
So fixed it at goal drops off. Let me they didn't spring. And then what I've sort of heard, you know, we have the CAT's goal of the design and construction of high priority projects on the water and wastewater capital improvement plans. Like I think that kind of still sits there because there's so much investment that's going on and the rate increases that need to happen, SDPs, you know, the work of Paul and contractors and engineers, you know, and it doesn't necessarily have to live in goals like they each have the different like you know, pump stations and stuff like that. It's pretty technical. And you guys I think keep updated on what's happening with those things.
Do we want a new goal? This is kind of dropping off within the same arena. In my mind, we need to talk about traffic calming in other parts of the city. You know, I live on Locust. I'm amazed how fast people could get from the locus entrance to my house. You know, in that short distance, I mean, you can hear the engines go up and they fly up and down that street, and I get very, very many cameras. Especially when there are kids in there, someone's gonna step out someday and get clobbered by someone trying to zoom from typically Coyote Springs, is where a lot of this comes. That's their cut to get down through, or they're cutting through, you know, to get to the Five Pines or something like that. There's an awful lot of fast traffic on that street. And I see it, I mean, you can tell because there's kind of a dip in the street. And you can tell how fast it went, how much the suspension varies as the car goes across it. No one's gone airborne yet, but there's some of it's quite surprised that. And so I think there are other parts of town too where traffic might be something we want to discuss. And traffic calming can be done in a way that doesn't impede traffic flow.
Is there how far are we from the new transportation, we looking at the whole point? Did you say, are we a couple of years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
so like,
So we can't wait for that.
We've talked about the lights on Cascade, the pedestrian blinking lights, I know we were talking about that. There'll be the first one that comes in, I forget the name, connects to 20, and then just kind of keeping it on our radar of how we can proceed after that.
I wonder if there's a goal. 'Cause so we have this pedestrian and bike potential committee. We got the flashing lights, we have traffic calming.
There's also, I've heard people say, you know, on Locust, I mean, there's no crosswalk. I mean, there's one downtown here and then all the way up Locust, there's no way to get east, west. On the whole stretch of it. I've had people. North Locust, yeah. Complain about that as well, because there's no way to get
It's only
from one side to the other.
And I realize that the parking flows from that traffic. But, you know, we've been hearing a few complaints, I've seen it with people coming through the roundabout and kind of using that corner to launch themselves down the hill and through.
I'd be for if you can come up with some language to lump it all together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
and it's something that
It's kind of.
we're never done,
Oh.
but if you want to keep it. For the community, just, traffic, safety, multimodal, safety.
You know,
Improve.
which gets back to the bike ped discussion and everything else, I think that I'm glad that we've done the planning, I think they're good, could we do more, maybe, but the point is that I think we do have to look at some of our streets that are not collector streets. And ask the question, it's got a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on it. Are we okay with people doing 40?
I'm very comfortable with all of the structure. If you had that piece with the bike pad and the emphasizing pedestrian traffic safety, I could go the rest of the day without talking about it. I think it's solid. How about that?
Okay, so one grant program that's still. Small, be a lot through. I just try to get that in charge. That a potential project, I think it point back is that. Down Barclay, traffic, pedestrian. Intersection improvement that is cascading. That's poorly still. Signage improvements, all of theme zone. Studies there.
Cool.
I think all of the things that.
That's all I had to spot in the back of my mind. This is.
I don't know,
Just to kind of keep it from being a way to cut off.
I tried back in park and was a I can match them.
And at the COAC meeting, they brought up the small city development program. They brought up that program and, you know, they did say that it can be underutilized, so they. Grant applications, so that's March 3rd through April 30th.
That is, inadvertently created.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, we agree with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So.
Okay, so we have a little over an hour to go. We have 1, 2, 3 more areas, and then I did want to leave enough time to come back to the other two. Lunch is here. We plan on doing like a working lunch. We can either drive through good governance and get that done, or grab lunch now. You can feel.
I'd rather go pizza bowl.
Oh.
Okay.
That's a good point.
That was already done, so which will take a quick freeze.
Take it.
Yeah, my opinion.
Yeah,
Yep.
let's take 5, 10, grab some food, and then we'll get back there. One thing if we can do urban renewal. I mean, my idea. Give us. The vision.
Yeah.
You
started. We need a sister hand up to say over. Hey, he's an owner. We're people. We're it's on the street.
Not
all
good governance.
We're on good governance. First one, These Sisters Country Vision Strategy. So my comment here was that this continues to be an ongoing thing that I think has probably been in council goals for the last 5 years or since the adoption of the vision. We have staff and councilor mayor on vision implementation team, the VIT. Any thoughts on any changes here?
Seems you're doing a good job.
Okay. This one probably have a little more conversation about the communications goal, really about public engagement and communications. We got a little specific on this year's goal about doing town halls, which I think have been pretty successful. And we usually have had, well, the ones that we've had this year have been centered around either council goals, of course, or UGB or houselessness. So big topics that have drawn people in, a couple hundred people each time. I don't know if we necessarily need to continue with a specific goal around town halls, but interested in hearing council's thoughts about what's next in terms of that communications plan, the CLA recommendations, doing additional outreach, additional communication tools that you'd like to see. We've talked internally a little bit about how so much of this work has grown for our city in the last couple of years that we're almost to that point where maybe we need somebody, even like a part-time basis, to kind of take the communication stuff, especially as Rebecca has slid into the full-time city reporter role with all the records, council process and all that, you know, I know we're small, but we're also such a center point, such a, you know, like a staff that serves a community that's very, very plugged in. There might be a certain point that we do need to think about someone that is just dedicated to communication. So,
the one thing I will, and I said this about CLA before, I think that program is excellent, and I'd like to find a way to keep doing that program after even this next one, and see if there isn't a way to either get grants or find a way to fund it in-house. I really think it's that good. And I think that some of these things that we talk about that are kind of on the fence are probably topics that CLA could help out with. So we get explore this, explore that, and might things that CLA can do in the future as part of the program. But
I think back to your comment about the outreach, public relations, whatever the word you want to use. I'm not sure we're big enough for full-time. There may be the folks in town that would be willing to look at part-time or share in the city or event, or is there an opportunity to have an individual who has more than one duty? So in other words, their main focus may be the public outreach, but in reality, they're gonna be able to access in other parts of the city, so you have that person there all the time, and the reason I say that is that when the news media comes and wants to talk to somebody about something that's going on, it's nice to have that point of contact that they go to. And whether it's an emergency or an event, tragedy, or just what you guys doing about X. There's a benefit to us to have that person who, rather than them calling one of us up or trying to find somebody who works in the city on the street and ask a question. I mean, I direct them all to Jordan whenever they
Yeah, they typically go through me and then
Right.
direct them to staff, or I'm like, they should talk to.
Right, but in terms of the letters, putting things in my packet, putting things up on the webpage. And that is all time intensive. And so I don't know if this opportunity, and I would depend on the staff to talk to that, to look at a position that is attractive enough to bring in a quality person, but they may have some other duties to do beyond just, it has to be a match. I think in order to make it work, because I think to get the right person, you probably get to look at something that's 3/4. Yes, yeah.
But yeah, I think there's, yes, something to that. I also, you know, just looking at this engagement, that are the goal that we have, I think we've gone a long way through a lot of it. We brought new plans, which I know pulled out and pulled out. And I think what you don't do is just using this plan under the radar, which is that super effective for the sure. I think city manager's office, but for sure the planning department. You know, using the form that we've done to make sure that we're getting all the marks and looking at data or using more survey things. So as far as that goal, you know, I think it's the second year of a goal about this. We definitely put that forward, and now I think we can rework that to. I'd still like to ask the staff to have that as a goal for council to some degree, because I think I hear it again. It's important that are we there yet? We don't know if we ever connect to everybody. Probably not, but we still have some people checking out. So I'm not sure what it looks like, but I think we can probably work something that kept that in if you guys are in favor of that.
Well, even though Jordan is the spokesperson, I hadn't thought about that. But really, we're talking about social media here. We need somebody with those diverse skills. We're doing a great job with what we have now, but as you said, Rebecca's becoming more and more varied in the business of being that full-time individual who's going to be dealing with public records requests and things like that. And I think I've seen improvements on the website, but I think it could do more.
I think it's also, you know, shifting from being reactive to proactive.
Yes.
Having to touch it.
If we do that 30 to 40%.
Yeah,
I think is great.
Yeah, something you was
See it with the shining like a bed working, but we don't have that team look that are extreme, you know, leaves or plowing sidewalks or whatever they're talking about. So there's always that aspiration, and we need to move that dial and I think continue ever. It's one of these that I don't think will ever come up. If the council is looking at that, because I think it's always come up.
I think the communication with them, it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
there. And I've been really blown away. It's changed a lot. I think I compliment everybody that's worked on that. I've really liked the town halls when they're appropriate, because I think people react and react well to them and perceive them as being valued. You know, the public and their input is valued, and sometimes the input is not quite in line with what the intent is, but it's still valued. Yeah, again, I said, it's early, sometimes we learn things from people that are, it's unintentional, but good. Yeah.
We've been smashing goal 1 for years now. We're just gonna keep doing it. I don't know how that applies to the goals, but we're gonna do it whether it's a goal or not, probably.
Yeah, because right now it's, you know, create and implement the communications plan, and now, you know, I think say, continue implementation of communication plan,
Execute and monitor.
right, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And the 3 town halls is in. Mitigation.
Not three, and I think that's one of those pieces that I think and I. Previous councils, I think, when maybe something wasn't moving along like they thought, maybe something like that in a goal, and. I never actually think about it. Dependent upon the year and how we look at it, and I don't know that it's up to you whether you want the number. It's part of our work as a community, have scout calls and open houses as well, right? Or whatever's going on this week on.
Conversation.
Yes,
It
yes.
says that, so. Captured it.
So
Maybe not the town hall, the outreach events or something. Different thing.
expand, execute, and monitor, that's what I got, somehow make that into minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. And I think we're planning to continue the coffee and the hours of control format. Trying out, I think next month on evening.
Me, I haven't done one yet. Here, so. I haven't done one yet. This is gonna be me and you. Yeah.
All right, quickly, we got the naming policy. We're applying that policy right now. And then we got the partnerships with local agencies and districts. This might be a goal of just maintaining those partnerships with the local agencies and districts. We have a lot of different ways that we intersect with them in these informal mitigation group meetings, so the community partnership on houselessness, for example. We have joint meetings scheduled coming up with the different boards. I threw in an idea that the council may want to consider at some point, maybe not this year, but do you have liaisons informally to these different boards where, you know, periodically attending a school district board meeting or a fire district board meeting. I know some of you attend the superintendent's coffee, but just another way to kind of provide those linkages between the different elected bodies in the community. But I think it's pretty important, as we've talked about today already, how important it is for us to have relationships and good working relationships with our other government agencies that are overlapping us. At my level, we have regular lunch meetings. I meet there one-on-one, all the other directors of the different directed districts, but at the elected level, they're opportunities to mix and share information.
That's a yes.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah.
So this the municipal code updates. This gets captured a lot in the goal. So there is some overlap that happens here. This we kind of, I think we put this goal in because there was other potential code updates that would fall outside of just development code that would belong here. I think this is what we were talking about. Forestry, heritage tree program, and things like that.
Is it off at midnight?
Good. You want to throw that in there? Sure. You want to? Got it.
Addition to that, councilors willing is that we have a policy in there as well. So we did a lot of policy updates, there was a specific policy that was spoken last year. I think leaving that generic allows us to look at policy and allows you to say, can you look at this policy in a lot of ways, and then maybe others a little bit more and be able to get that.
Yeah. The one that I also like kind of throw in here because I've heard of a few councilors is around good council rules. I don't think those have been touched in probably like 5 years. I brought this up before. There's the model rules that the LLC has put out there. It's probably 5 or 6 years old at this point, but a lot of cities have adopted that. It's probably other models that we can look at. I know certain things have come up over the last year or so, you know, about protocols and stuff with the leadership positions. This would be the opportunity to kind of maybe think about that as for a good governance goal. We've got the council rules, and the way we would kind of approach that. These are your rules of city council and how you engage each other, how you engage the and staff. So ideally, you would appoint to come down with staff and kind of do that.
I was people that opened it up to Jordan. I'd be interested in that. And if we're going to have a document like that, I think it should be better and it's old.
Right.
And
Just a little tighter, you know, yeah. And I'm okay, I'd be happy to do it or anyone else, and that's where I think when we talk about, maybe it's somewhere else in here, but you know, we talk about succession too, that's another piece that I would like us to get, so we have clean succession within our leadership of the council. So, every other group I've been on does that, or I think it's a good idea. So we all know what to expect and how to expect it and those kinds of things. And whether that's here or somewhere else, it doesn't, we have to do that today, but that could be part of what that group looks at too.
I think so. Yeah, that would
Yeah.
fall.
So,
Cool. I think that's any other good governance goals that came up from.
I have a question on the EV charging station, not critical for now, but with the changes in the administration and moving away from cutting the funds for all the EVs around the state, especially the ones in the Infrastructure Act, is that going to impact our ability on the grant with ODOT to get those units in?
I'm gonna let Jackson run us through the environmental sustainability.
Okay.
Locally,
Right.
I mean,
Yes, that's fine.
Short answer is low risk. So we've received the grant, it's committed, we have signed agreement.
Okay. That's
It's
what I
not
need.
one of the discretionary grants that have all been pulled back
Pulled
or
back.
halted.
Thanks,
So
that's all.
we're hopeful that it'll be $220 or something for those EV chargers portal. I think there's a lot of other programs that are funding EV chargers that are, and so going forward, there may be programs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on environmental sustainability, yeah, we're jumping right into it. You guys have an environmental sustainability plan now. We also have the water conservation plan. Those are two documents that live, well, stage of implementation. Thoughts about keeping that goal? Sorry, guys, you're speaking up too.
I'm going to hear from Jackson. I want to hear from James.
Right here.
This is here.
Okay, so yeah, we've been looking at previously what we address. So removing sod and turf and the paper out there escaping to save water, specifically the Bush Street Islands. As a good starting by residents. A good start. The Hood Avenue Islands, south and west of Pine. Also looking at recirculating the used water from the splash pad for irrigation. That one. And then working on city hall landscaping, water conservation, and space.
Yeah, I think you've heard us talk a little bit about this project, but with the defensible space, road updates, and then in interest of the water conservation, and then renewed water restriction, everything is our idea there. We've already engaged with one landscape architect, is putting in a demonstration garden at City Hall that would be defensible space and water conservation. So it'd be like a pathway, like signage. We'd have to do some tree removal, rip out the turf, put in desert landscaping with species that would be within the approved list of our defensible space code. What's that?
Your food.
Deer food, not deer. We did bring that up.
Who's versus please?
But I think this is one of those things that demonstrating that the city is walking. If we're asking folks to invest, that their city government's also doing it, and also this is a public education sort of opportunity to. This is what this improved species is. This is a water drought tolerant. This is 5 feet from the building, this is 30 feet from the building, so it's required. And it can even be a little pocket park. Too.
Buckler.
Yeah, it's great, and it would be nice to get the library to
Yeah.
partner with that too. I mean, I don't know where that line physically is drawn or watering or, cause all that. Oh, that's
Kind of changes come.
Okay. Cause it's kind of a before and after, if they don't do anything, it is like a before and after.
Well, we have a sign that's just to the side that says, this is what you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. They can't see
They can't see.
the arrow.
If you wanted to do a concrete bench like we have done in the past, I'm sure Vander Brothers would love to donate. You know what I mean? I'm the vice president.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It checks a lot of boxes.
I'm a yes.
You know, any. You know, because we need to obviously be protecting the city's infrastructure, because if, something hits the fan, we want our infrastructure to be as well protected as possible. For the community and for future.
When we lead, you have to lead by example.
Yeah, but then there's just the example of, it looks like we're doing it, we're not asking you to do.
We're doing it with dark skies, we're doing it with fire, I mean.
I like the idea, this is
Public
5 feet,
works
this is so many feet.
You
Like
I mean, it's just,
sign and check.
you gotta keep doing it, staying in it.
Quick question. I'm hoping this is from last year's budget meeting, but are we charging for the EV chargers?
It's a great question.
Where does that discussion come?
If you come up here, I think,
We gotta put it in.
I don't know the rules on the ground and what our capabilities are for if we can charge on them or not, if they.
We would be able to.
Okay. I think, and I've heard from counselors about interest in doing that.
And the way you do it is done a little differently, by the kilowatt hour, and you also think about the gas tax concept, because we're not getting the 3 cent or whatever the gas is. And because our electrical rate is so cheap, it'd be very easy to put in a surcharge. I could give you the math on how that works. That would equate to what somebody would have with a car that gets maybe 30 miles to the gallon per week. So it might go from 6 cents, which is what you're getting from the utility, to 8 cents a kilowatt hour. But it's not a lot, because my car filling takes about 50 kilowatt hours. So you take and multiply that. It's what we get for a gas station for 14 gallons of gas at 3 cents a gallon, and the numbers come up. And so it's still going to be cheaper for that person to quote fuel their car, but we can do it in such a way we can collect dollars for the street fund that we're losing from the gasolines. And I would like to see that implemented if we do.
I don't know what is that?
I have a 75 kilowatt hour.
Yeah, is that that's to speed things up, I think. That's definitely something we need to have.
Yeah. I think we do.
Whether that's a tax or a fee or.
That's probably be a goal, let's create a policy, whatever that is.
Right.
Does everyone in?
Design this year, construction.
Yeah.
So we just gotta be ahead of that.
Yeah, you have time to look at it, and I just think that if we're putting them in, since they're city property, in essence, we get some flack about these ones out here ones up by City Hall being free, the libraries. And so I think some kind of a charge is appropriate. You don't need to be making a ton of profit on it. But I think we should be recouping our tax fee, our road tax fee, that we don't get from the gasoline sales, certainly within that pricing structure.
Well, the police pay for that, it's on, because I know that
Yeah,
there's hoses get rid and people.
Yeah, so you can build that in too, but still, the Tesla charges up here, they're charging 36 cents a kilowatt hour. That's a big profit thing for Tesla. It's a lot.
Okay, last one in this category is about the recycling center. Republic is coming next week, so we'll be having a workshop on. It's an update from Republic Service, but also we'll have will be a workshop on recycling center options there, especially in light of the RMA. Potential funding to convert the recycling center into one of the enhanced depots for additional recyclables and everything that's by law, the RMA, and being managed by the CAA. Circular action plans. Depending on the outcome of this, and there might be a lag here where because of the funding, the way the funding is going to be structured with the RMA, that we may have to come in future years to get funding for the depot to cover the full cost of that. And also there's still an unknown about whether our recycling center would be able to accommodate, is that the right size? How much might be required to make investments into the facility and everything to accommodate the additional materials. So there's also the suitability question that we have to work with Republic on if that can indeed happen. So depending on that, then it's, you know, sort of the next stage of the question is then, do we keep it as a glass recycling? Do we, you know, keep it as is and just continue to subsidize, and subsidy then becomes a city subsidy of county residents? Or do we think about it in terms of an asset that we can convert into something different and go to curbside costs? So I'm not exactly sure where the goal might be here. It's kind of continued work, and it kind of depends on this workshop and additional information.
I'm gonna just go right there and say this, again, it may not be a popular opinion. I think it's the most underutilized piece of property in the city owns. The city has already curbside service. We could add glass to that. I know there's a cost to that. But I think long-term, you know, I wanted to dump Republic 2 years ago, to be honest with you. I'm just not a pleasant fan of those guys, but I'll leave it up to the rest of you, what you think. And I think that that's almost like a two or three parallel path thing to try and set a goal for. I don't know if that's even possible at this time.
I think Jordan and I had discussed at one point, you know, that property being, you know, if it wasn't recycling, maybe the overarching goal is what do we do with that property, period. You know, it could be a really good place for, if we wanted to do wildfire mitigation assistance, where, you know, we stockpile, you know, gravel or granite or something there, so when people are doing a 5-foot fire free, then they can just pick it up there, and it's not like driving the Bend or the trailer. You know, it could be used, you know, and just spitballing some ideas in that sense. So because it is set up as kind of a drop off shipping depot dumping, you know, it does have a good structure to it. So I mean, there could be this overarching thing of just what is the future of the property.
I'm not even a safe parking aficionado, but if we needed 3 spaces or something,
Well, and
I
one
don't
of
know, you
the
know.
things you need with state park is you need really fencing, and not to keep the people in, but to keep the people out from coming, so you don't have the, you know, but I was thinking too, with this, just a thought in the back, stick in the back of your mind, Jordan, and then let it go, is that if there's gonna need to be staffing this RMA, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
A lot of models that I've seen work with your special education programs in your high schools in your areas for the individuals who are going through life skills training. And they have the skill and the ability, some supervision to be able to do that kind of work, and they like it. I've seen that done at the recycle center, disposal center in Eugene. You go in and they have all the different places to recycle everything, you name it, it's there. And a lot of it's staffed by individuals that are adults now, that have come out of the life skills programs at high schools. And the biggest problem you have with a lot of these folks is finding work environments appropriate for them, and it gives them the opportunity to get up every day, go somewhere and work and contribute. And so that's just in the back of our minds as we look at how we try to implement that, if we have to do it, rather than having to have.
Yeah. Not to get into much, but there is some funding dollars, but it's only like a quarter of PE to manage that the RMA apply funding for, and so there will be a funding gap if we do convert it to a depot, you know. But is that gap enough to justify, you know, for the council and the community of like having additional opportunity to recycle materials we have today?
I use that facility for glass primarily, in large format. And I'm always amazed at how much stuff's put in the wrong bins. I mean, people have no problem pitching things into the cardboard bin, and then that whole load is up. No longer usable. It's contaminated, and so it goes into the landfill rather than recycling. So, and that's because there's no one there.
Yeah,
So is
that'd be like hearing what the options are.
Yeah.
and getting.
Yeah, that'd be,
Yeah, I mean, for the, and the timing will work out when we can tool the goal depending on what we hear. So then it might be like continue a steady option. I'm gonna propose something in the interest of time. Let's like circle back to the housing, livability, and growth, the wildfire goals, because we had tabled some things to talk about there.
And I discussed that we could cut URA out of the conversation.
Right.
Fine,
Yeah.
anyway.
We can schedule a URA meeting, probably the first meeting in March. So. Okay. Yep. Okay. Housing, livability, growth. Can we make this one in two pages?
Yeah.
So under the first goal, we have leverage local and regional resources. Carrie gave the update on this and where we stand. There's both the strategy here of continuing to have this community partnership and being a convener of that, which the city is. I mean, this is a community partnership, but we are convening those and kind of setting the agendas in a way. But that action plan that's being developed now may have some specific recommendations for the city to tackle. Consider safe parking code, for example. Consider certain types of zoning allowances in the new UGB areas. What might be another example, like things like that. So that may be something that we just capture, to consider implementation of the action plan. Continue convening the partnership.
Yes, on both.
Yeah. I was probably disconnected a little bit from how worried people are about
Fire.
Yeah, like maybe 6 months ago, and realizing that that's some people's major concern for getting people moved out of the forest, as opposed to some of the other ways it comes out. And so I just, Carrie's been going to these more regional meetings, and I'm going to start going with her, and I've gotten a new contact who is full of information, and I certainly don't want to look at like we're going to do everything that other communities do, but I'm in favor of, in all topics, throwing things at the wall and saying what fits here, and can we make it work, and looking at it through the lens of not only just making housing, but is this a way we get people out of the forest? Like using that lens, I think is valuable, rather than getting into all the negative things that can come up.
But still with large amounts of public engagement, just so everybody,
Absolutely.
I don't want to always have to mention that, but on that topic, obviously, the shelter thing we just had to stay way in front of it with the engagement, right? And yeah, you understand, we have to like get out and keep doing it. That's all I'll say about it.
This was the first example of like under this category of having goal and strategic actions, right? So like, that first bullet point, kind of refining that to be a goal statement, and then the strategic actions would be about the action plan, engaging the community on implementation of actions the city could take in that action plan. So the next two bullets, the partnerships of affordable and workforce housing, and then the monitoring, these are kind of related in some ways because it centers around things that you guys have been talking about today about additional ideas and programs like the middle income grant program, the potential for a committee or a stakeholder group or a task force or whatever we want to call it around affordable housing, the efficiency measures, all these are kind of related to increasing housing supply and most importantly, increasing both use of affordable housing. So additional tools, code changes, community partnerships, funding, and what are those funding sources? And there's even some recommendations about that in some of the letters we received. So, we had kind of brought up some of the, I heard some of these ideas brought up already. But this, I think in these next couple goals, probably land strategic action.
I think you're on the right path. So. They're big chunky goals. But it's the most important thing that we can do in, honestly. Because see how expensive it's getting. I got a list right here that I happen to be not about this whole setting meeting, but I already lost it. It was all the list from MLS of all the empty lots that were for sale in our area. And then it's just from last week. And I got it downstairs on those gardens. The smallest, cheapest lot in Sisters, right? It's $250,000.
Yeah.
In the area.
And a few years or something. We can find something housing on because it was so expensive even for somebody.
I was like, what? But that's how it is.
Is in terms of that affordable housing committee, we had talked a little bit about this. Is there a council consensus for us to explore this, to establish one this year? Do we want to start informally as like a task force or just convening our partners like Habitat and some of the groups out of Bend and the Partners for Affordability and having a roundtable and just putting all the ideas on the table, and then that comes back to the council of like, here's their top line recommendations. Can we do this? Does this make sense for a community of our size? Any thoughts on sort of how?
Did you say regional, like people from Bend?
Well, I mean, Rooted
I'm
Homes,
just asking.
Rooted Homes, Thistle Nest,
Yeah.
First Northwest Housing would be a part.
I thought you meant like other housing, not, you mean people that are potential partners.
Yeah, right. What really helps them?
Well, and I think we've seen some of this in letter from Peter, and some other things about things they would like to see us do. They're really code related. Sorts of things that make it more affordable to build. But I think one of the things we have to think about as a city when we talk about things like that, are there examples of what that looks like somewhere, maybe in Bend or somewhere else where this happens? We can go see what that means to make these kind of changes if we choose to do them. So we're not trying to visualize it ahead. We can actually see it implemented to see what the impact might be in that. And so, I don't have a problem with that being some kind of a roundtable discussion or something and go from there. I'm not sure where we are on it. I mean, I've got some concerns in some other areas that, I want to be sure that we address, but that's can be down the road because they're really related to the whole annexation. So that's some thoughts on. But yeah, I think the more we know and the more we learn, the better we're going to be at making sound decisions that will be with our community. So many times, make sure what you're doing doesn't ruin our small town. Make sure what you're doing doesn't take away the field. That. Some of those are no growth folks, but others are people that are genuinely concerned that they understand we need to do this and want to be sure to do it. Because if the animals, even in this time, we do as well. Well, that's it.
I think we should have the goal of creating it. I think it's been bounced around for a few years, so, but we're, whether we do it or we quickly partner up with somebody else, POIC or, somebody help put together, facilitate that. I mean, it's definitely on the table, but it hasn't happened organically. I think that it might happen organically over the last few years, and it hasn't. So I think we need to So I would prefer to have a goal that's in the. Yeah, it could be, you know, GMO.
At least a document that's capturing all these ideas that fly out there and then we're gone.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah, and then we can prioritize those. Some of them might be low hanging fruit that we could tackle. Something to document all the different ideas.
And I wonder if people still be having an idea, throw it out, and then 5 minutes later, forget it, I get set it. Yeah, so that, I like that idea, be able to capture things and. You go through, you get some out, but it's like you say, it's forgetting all seasons.
It could be something we throw at VIP as well, but again, I think we need to take the.
I do think some ideas might come out, from, like the annexation policy,
Yeah.
like things that it's not something we have to put in a code or anything, it's like just ideas that might make a difference, you know, just thoughts to keep in mind, so
Yeah,
you don't lose your time, yeah.
Is it safe to say the efficiency measures? Code requirements would go through traditional channels like.
Yeah, but I mean, I think this group would be interested in
Yes.
looking at those. I mean, there was 30 recommendations and the council adopted 15 of them probably. So there's additional ones on there that, hey, how are, you know, these 12 doing? Should we revisit some of these other that decided for whatever reason at the time? Is there any more that we should put on the table?
I don't mind re-looking at it. I mean, I you know, personally, I've mentioned a few of these and, you know, Gary's mentioned a few that maybe are different than my thinking. I think that means that there were.
So like I said, sometimes they're different, but then when you really kind of get in and start working them, and thinking about them, they meld into something that's
We can all agree.
better than the single.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's another example though, how you're trying to balance the small town character and keeping sisters the way it is versus just we're adopting all 30 of these and we're going to 4 stories, you know, like some of this might be incremental and some of these might be, you know, even with design standards, right? Like you're going to hear from this group, probably anything you're going to do to tweak, like you need more, you know, articulation on the building or variation in design, it's going to affect the affordability, right? So
That's right.
you're just going to have to work with that and give and take and okay, we're willing to do this program, but not that. Okay, couple more here. Before we get to Wildfire, I think we've talked enough about the UGB. We understand where that's headed. The big one there is the next stuff that we need to do. And I don't think there needs to be any like more elaboration on the goal of the annexation policy because that's going to have a lot of workshops and study and maybe even stakeholder involvement and stuff on that. But you know, all those ideas about setbacks and buffer zones and but of course the affordable housing requirements and stuff would be captured in that goal. And then the area specific planning, which I think probably we'll have to do a contract and that's it already included. Sorry, they're great. There's those things do in the budget. Yeah. Right. On the dark sky, a couple of those ideas kicked around is, you know, we talked about how do we encourage or incentivize homeowners to kind of take this on. We've got 4 years to go. The number that was kicked around, Paul's got on cascade lights. That's not something we necessarily have to do this year, but we have 4 years to do some sort of retrofit that could be anywhere from $0 to $200,000 to make our beautiful decorative lighting downtown dark sky. I don't know if we have the capacity this year to take that on. And that would be probably street fund, not general fund dollars that would be hit.
Design and budget this year and do it next year. What do you think? Is that available?
Yeah. Can't bring.
Yeah, anxious about it, but it's okay to say, you know what, we looked at our budget, and I think our staff, we need to do it.
don't want to put in more work than he does, but I mean, make the statement that important in the back of my head, and that is that we've got, there's been a lot of folks saying, well, you be able to see the water, you're gonna be able to do this, and so the sooner we get it for lighting in Cascadia or wherever it's gonna go, and show what it means to have dark sky compliant lighting, will help eliminate some of those misconceptions for people that really don't understand.
What if we did one block? Just do one block, just 8 foot. Here's the difference, here's the lights, there's, you know, I don't know, is that interesting?
Important things.
Yeah, and staging.
Maybe we can get a lighting company, say, hey, we're gonna do one block, help us out. Those what you can do.
And this is something, so I think we can maybe break this into two things. One is that just dark skies, city properties. Maybe, and then dark skies, community rollout, and that I'm really hoping to be hard on community partners for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have to take a pretty central role in communications, right?
Yeah.
And also like getting people to the resources of here's what dark sky certified lighting looks like, you know, in terms of the fixtures and things that you need to switch out.
I'm hoping the partners can provide that information, because it can be more conduit.
Yeah. But we're also going to be the enforcement arm, right? So we have a stake, making sure that people understand what the rules are and are moving towards doing it. That's at the end of 4 years, then we're going to have to get into the compliance conversation about.
We need our compliance officer to have like a uniform and.
But yeah, I was
Addressing that.
but I think the
Yeah.
thing that people don't realize, that dark sky compliant lighting, in my addition to that's required. And it puts out every bit as much light as any other light on the exterior of my house, and in some ways it's more pleasant. So I think that, you know, it's doable and it's not, it's expensive, and then you're gonna have electrician or something maybe, but it's not as expensive. Because you can still use the same light box on the side of your house and all those things.
We have 3 more minutes until Gary.
Well, I can make it another 15 to 20, but we have Eric coming in with his group at 1:30.
Okay, Wildfire.
Told you.
We had a couple things here on the kind of the next steps. A lot of talk about emergency preparedness, public information, getting information out about evacuations and disputes alerts, and working with DCSO on the emergency preparedness. We talked about implementing the recommendations from the updated CWPP, where we can, when we have direct control over it, and some of this is the strategic actions on supporting those efforts. So we can keep goals like that, and then drill down a little bit into the, I guess, some of the weeds on how we're doing that, or what we're taking a central role on, or more of a central role on, in terms of public education and outreach, being involved with emergency preparedness fairs. I've been wanting to get our website updated as a catch-all for all these different resources, because is it Project Wildfire? Is it, Firewise? There's so many different places you can go to get information about wildfire and emergency preparedness.
I think the bullet points about our code changes and implementing our own plan should be at the top of the paragraph.
Support local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think those 2 bullet points are at the top are pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
I think those can be melded into one. And then obviously adding one about emergency preparedness and evacuation.
Yeah, and I really like to highlight that we're attempting as a city to, as an organization, to highlight our own property lead in this area, to make sure people know that we're not just telling people what to do, that we're actually doing it. And just absolutely highlight that. By making it a goal and then accomplishing it. And whatever that is, I know we haven't figured out exactly what that means, but it's just.
Paul, do we have additional, I know it's an ongoing thing now to do, like cleanup of properties and stuff every few years, like brush clearing and stuff, but is there other measures that we need to budget for at other properties.
Yeah, the next big lift is gonna be our first prescribed burns on our properties, including the buffer area behind Coyote Springs that separates us from the treatment plant and then out the lake sea. So,
Okay.
I've already started that work. Our consultant and foresters. So we'll have a better idea.
People in these Coyote Springs are a little sensitive about that. And rightfully so, I mean, it's right to your back door.
It's in our plan.
Yeah,
We're executing.
no, I know. We just, again, it's right next door, right?
Wow.
Maybe we could burn all those.
Yeah.
So does the wildfire resiliency plan, does it need regular updates, or is there a lot of those things are just ongoing every 5 years at this property?
It's got action plans.
So keep that, I should keep that as a goal, like demonstrate for the public and.
Yeah, the bullet point about undergrounding telecom utilities, I mean, new development already does that, I mean, that's. Important, I just don't, I don't know in conversation with CEC or anything, if they have any sort of funding stream to. I think the big issue is to take existing stuff and underground it, and that's an enormous lift, and I just don't know if there's been any. Funding or any movement around that, I don't know if it's, I mean, it's important, but I don't know if it's a more bullet there, because. Way to move the needle on that at the moment.
We kind of did a self-initiated project. Barclay. Going to a station, great. Well, we got rid of the power, we're the cable company, but we'll eliminate 400 yards of overhead and 4 or 5 poles and going right into a really forested spot. So,
But we're paying for some of that. Yeah.
yes.
But I think.
Well, that's good,
If we can't get the cable or the telephone underground, we get the electric, that's a real
Yeah.
concern in terms of.
That's the big one.
Well, when we have trees fall down on Washington, sometimes you're just forced to fix it.
Yeah, this is kind of low hanging fruit. 5 to 10 years.
Every time you have an opportunity, you just kind of do.
Does CEC help with that financially, or nothing needs to be that?
They provided the labor to pull the wire. They'll get the poles. So they got skinny.
We need to have them in so we can, get more speed. Okay.
Okay, other thoughts on wildfire community resiliency?
Lead by example is what I have just written on.
Just so critical with the loss of her.
Don't forget about the evacuation, community
Yeah.
conversation. Or you already had that.
Yeah, and then circle back one more time to livability. There was Counselor Calderon had the youth teen services and then we kind of went into a conversation about SBRD. And I think I don't know if this lands this year in terms of a goal under that sort of topic, but with the UGB expansion, we'll start having to think about parkland out there. Where does it make sense? What does that look like? What kind of amenities we want there? What's in our parks master plan that can be accommodated there, but what more do we? Maybe that conversation happens, in terms of teen and youth amenities there, but also I think the part of the goal, the youth counselor stuff, and then there's probably more conversation there about that. I think we've even had tried in the past to have a youth council, but our district is not big enough to sustain it. And things are just so busy these days. It's hard to get interest, but we can find one. We just need one.
I think you can. You get a meeting. But, they get make comments from council comments, talk about what's going on in schools and things that are important. I think it's a value. You may be the student body. Typically, someone who has an interest in government is what you're going to get.
Is there a possibility of just making a good governance goal to involve youth into our decision-making process or something like that. I think it'll be kind of a low-hanging fruit-ish kind of thing, and at the same time, it's very important.
Maybe some of some. This and that parks and things like that, maybe there needs to be some youth on some of those committees too.
And
That's a CLA.
Well, I've done,
one of the overarching issues was we had, a high school student contacted me about something having to do with parks, and I forwarded it to Gary since he's a liaison, and, you know, one of our things was like, well, hey, you should go to the parks meeting, and even though it's kind of later in the day, he's like, no, I have school, like, I can't, you know, and that's, you know,
Yeah.
of our committees today, you know, so that precludes, youth involvement. And 8 to 5 people for the most part, you know, so I mean, you know, bigger picture.
and the worst thing that happens is we don't get anyone.
Yeah, I think we look for you. You're the
Yeah.
expert in the schools and.
Things that I would say, like the idea is that we kind of deep in our decision making and starting there. See if you get anything with DLA. We are our cases to the school, the high school, for doing, so we're gonna start doing some things. And I think being that way, it is very difficult for those government oriented kids to actually find the time. There's a couple kids I've asked about joining DLA, but I think would be very, but they don't have the time. So it's an interesting idea. I think we should look into that. I think that see where we get the interest. And I think what George said, but we did have a that was abandoned because you just couldn't get people to show up consistently in that. And I think that that's done. It's starting to think about that in terms of maybe parks or doing all those things. Like I think that's a great.
Maybe you get to like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to do more.
But I'm just saying. I kind of. Rather than that. Students just. It was very rare. Students actually confident. Big group of adults. Well, maybe it's like alternative.
We start to kind of lean into that more. I think that's a great way to start it, to make sure we're not just saying, here's what we need you to do. 16, 17-year-olds, everyone look at you like crazy. Just on the side, when I did mention to state to the government, AP teacher today, they like to go speak. So
Hey, we got the fourth graders coming, we'll get there. Right?
a lot.
You'll have more interaction with fourth graders. That is the class.
Hey, folks.
I was bad guy.
I mean, if you want to get their attention.
Yeah.
Scholarship.
Yep.
That's the way to get there.
Have you for
$500.
Yeah, a good part of this.
Yeah.
Apply for a scholarship with part of the group.
Probably stop and pay it. It's good for 3 years.
Nice.
Yep.
Come on, later.
But yeah, you start.
You got it.
Yeah. So you just. Dollars.
Okay, you got that?
So
Just asking.
I Joe didn't get to talk. No,
Joe. Here.
Yeah. So at the very end of the time, it actually is sort of a snapshot of where we've been. You know, the good news in all that is that we're in good shape. Joe and I will be working on a 5-year forecast for the general fund. Maybe like present that as part of the budget process to give you even a better look of like what our outlook is and how, you know, maybe the slowdown in growth and other things may impact just how much we're sustaining that kind of financial growth that we've experienced over the last several years. But as things stand right now, things are, you know, you're in good shape. We'll be going into the budget process, you know, coming up now, basically, and with the, of course, the May budget committee meeting, you'll see the proposed budget. But the reason why we put information like that into your package is just so that it reminds you that as you think about goals and, you know, maybe projects or we, you know, let's build a park here or there, just keep in mind that finite resources and, reserves, would be seen as like one-time sources if they're not already committed. But don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this, but it does, why we put that stuff in there, and we'll be talking about that during the budget process. We're sort of out of time. I wasn't, good job. 4 hours. Okay, I was just, I think what we would plan to do is do the goal setting workshop. Potentially even on the 26th, we just roll in next week, and maybe in the last part of the council meeting as an urban renewal meeting to set goals for urban renewal. And then on March 12th, we had penciled in adopting council goals, but that can be a workshop that can continue to work on these, and we'll have to bring back a draft of after all the stuff that we talked about today.
I have one quick thing. I did a survey of my smaller circles of citizens. I asked them all, what is the one thing that the City of Sisters needs over the last week? And I kind of got about 10 responses, with all my coffee people and all those people I meet. 7 were about kids and 3 were about business. So what that says to me is there is a large group of the community that is kid oriented and business oriented and not as much worried about housing and parts and, and if they're saying that means we're probably a little in some of that too. So I think it's a common group of people, but I found it in. That's all I got. Good job.
So let me ask the question, it's business owner. What can we as a city council do to support businesses? That really is the role of the chamber.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it is, most people say they just need some facilitation. I think we could work with EDCO, Explore Sisters, the chamber, if there's anything left, SBA, ourselves, just keep the conversation lines open when somebody really needs something. When you hear about a business building, it's horrible and it's totally too late. So if there's a way just that we can support each other in the very smallest ways, and most people tell me when they go to visit, just thanks for coming and thanks for showing up. When I walk in and I go, hey, how's business out here? Is this your first winter? Because most winters are time only. So you have
Just kind of curious, in the back of my mind is that, given the sort of odd situation that we're in, how do we get it back that? And that's not a bad solution.
Just facilitation is all they're looking for. Just I don't really think they're ready as a dash. They're just looking, hey, how can we get people to know this meeting? Just have yeah. I hear SBA is coming up with the next TV commercial next week. Oh, that's amazing that they come up with that.
Well, and I have said this before, but I like the concept of QR codes on signposting businesses in this area. You scan it and show you who they are, how to find them, and what they sell, and those sorts of things, as well as parks and other stuff. You could do wayfinding on top of QR code. The beauty of that is that when something changes, you just change the background of the site that comes up. You don't have to change the stuff. Right up here, yeah, but I'm talking about like on a street corner, down along Hood or down along Cascade, where people are walking, coming along and they're standing there, maybe they don't know the town. Scan here to find places, scan here to, look at our shops in this neighborhood. So they're actually, I've seen it in Joseph, they have it in different places around the city. Keep saying Joseph, but if a little town like that can do it, make it work. Way up Willis, they're happy. So, and we'll be there. They're relatively, it's inexpensive. I like what they're doing. I notice what they're doing from here. I'm not taking any exact effort. And in fact, some of the very QR codes that are there, some were down. On the street sign on there. So you could have 3 or 4 food, shopping, whatever. You just scan it pops up. Because not everybody walks with.
Amazing place we live in.
Any followers?
No, just thank you, thanks, that again.
Yeah.
Thank you for organizing this. yeah, I think we look forward to the draft and. You got your work cut out. It was-
You guys all took notes,
Yeah.
right?
You can get it on one page, right? One page.
I'm thinking you had the one page.
Thank you for the food.
Yes, thank you.
That was all right up.
Meeting adjourned. We're adjourned.
And John,